And now, good mic work commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
It is that time once again. Happy Saturday and happy weekend, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great one. Welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for October the 26th, 2024. When I look at that date, I feel like October 26th is the anniversary of In Your House Buried Alive, 1996. Look that up and confirm that with me, but I always have that date in my head for some reason. I think it might be October 26th. Anyway, it's near the end of October. It's almost Halloween. It's almost holiday season. And we got a lot to get into on this Winged Eagle Podcast because we've got some wrestling news to get into. We have some wrestling results. A big night on SmackDown last night with the absolutely joyous match between the Motor City Machine Guns and the Bloodline. MCMG picking up the tag team championships in only the third match. I'm watching the show tonight, or kind of monitoring the show at work on my phone. So I'm seeing that the Guns win the championships, and I'm like, wait. I swear that I remember them saying tonight or last night was the number one contenders match, and now they're champions. I was so out of the loop and so curious as to what the hell was going on. And plus, they were doing a double taping last night because of Crown Jewel next week in Saudi. So between the taping of SmackDown and the Guns winning an impromptu tag title match, I wasn't sure which one of these shows this match was happening on, and trying to organize that and figure it out in my head last night when I'm at work was stressful because I wanted to know what the hell was going on. But it was really fun to come home and watch that episode of SmackDown last night and to see the way that whole thing came together. I think that was brilliant because if you would have ran that same angle that they did last night on next week's SmackDown, that means it would have been taped and we would have known and we would have read the spoilers. I read the spoilers for next week. We won't spoil anything here today, but I did read them for next week. And if they would have put that match with Jey Uso interfering and helping the Guns win, it would have been on a taped show. This was a way better way to do it, in my opinion. And I thought it was a really fun SmackDown last night, especially with that tag title match. And now Crown Jewel is shaping up to be about a 7-match card. There's currently 6 announced, and I believe they're going to have one more match added to that I think will be made official next week on SmackDown. After I read the spoilers and reading one segment that happened, feels that that's the match they're going to do. So I think there's going to be 7 matches 1 week from today at WWE Crown Jewel. Now, we will be here a week from today to review the show when it is over, so keep that in mind for next week. I'll put a link and all that stuff up here this week for Crown Jewel. And we'll be here talking about that. But in addition to the SmackDown stuff from last night, what's going on with Crown Jewel, we're also going to talk a little bit about AEW Dynamite and how they're looking heading into full gear and some of the changes we might be seeing. I mean, Wednesday's Dynamite was universally shit on, and I watched the show, and there were definitely some things on the show I did not like, but there were some changes that I'm at least recognizing. And one thing that I will point out about AEW later on is that they are not oblivious to the criticisms. And I feel like they definitely hear them, where when you compare that to downtimes in WWE, whenever the fans would have complaints, it felt like WWE largely ignored us or didn't care, or even in some cases took perverse enjoyment out of disappointing us. So on AEW's end of things, what they're doing might not necessarily work with some of these new angles and storylines, but there does seem to be an effort being made to change the discombobulated nature of some of their booking. They've got some more concrete stories that are a little bit, more sectioned off. A couple of those stories are going to eventually overlap, which I think is promising. And I think they're trying to tighten up and get a little bit more creatively organized. Now, that's not translating quite yet to television, and people had a lot of complaints about this past Wednesday, but I feel like they're at least making an effort, and that's what you want out of your wrestling company. You don't want a wrestling promotion that just ignores the criticisms as, everything's just fine, we're going to just keep doing what we're doing. That's not what's happening here. They actually seem like they're recognizing what's happening and trying to change. and trying to fix things. Whether or not these attempts to fix things work still remains to be seen, but it's nice to see the attempts being made. So we'll get into a little bit about Dynamite later on. And we got a lot of wrestling news. WWE and Vince McMahon slapped with yet another lawsuit. We'll talk about that. Also, some information on WWE maybe attempting to fuck with Dave Meltzer a little bit and discredit him regarding the Kevin Owens contract situation. And I got a lot of opinions about Kevin Owens, especially the way they're kind of, he wasn't on SmackDown last night, but the tone in which they're speaking about him, Triple H's warnings to Randy Orton. I'm like, Triple H, do you realize who you're talking to right now? This is the Viper. This is a guy that doesn't mind punting your wife if he has to. So I found that really interesting that, Triple H is scared for the other talent of what Kevin Owens could do to them. If you're going to talk him up this much, you better deliver on that. And I've got plans for Kevin Owens to hold World Championship gold again for the first time in 8 years. Stay tuned for that. We've got a big new re-signing with AEW. They're keeping their Music Man around. They've also filed 3 new trademarks for likely their streaming deal with Max. We'll talk a little bit about more about the Samantha Irvin and Lillian Garcia situation that took place on Monday. And we will speculate on what WWE is going to do at this year's Saturday night's main event in December. And WrestleMania tickets went on sale a couple of days ago, and they are bonkers. So we'll get into, at least the prices are bonkers. So we'll get into that. We might touch on a little bit of this past week's Monday Night Raw. We had a big debut in NXT this week. And like I said, we'll run through the Crown Jewel card, and we'll talk a little bit about Full Gear. So that's kind of what's on the menu today. I do want to give you guys a programming note. Guess what? Tomorrow, we are back, finally, for our classic pay-per-view watch-alongs. We had to miss 2 weeks, and it's been a while. We haven't even done a Halloween Havoc, which is actually good because we've done a ton of Halloween Havocs. There's not many left to do. So, tomorrow, we're going to be here watching WCW Halloween Havoc 1991. Do me a favor. Google the match card. Look up the Halloween Havoc 91 Wikipedia page and get a load of that card. Tomorrow's show includes the world-famous Chamber of Horrors match. We're going to watch and enjoy that together. If you've never seen it, it has to be seen to be believed. So we're going to be watching that tomorrow, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. That is going to overlap a bit with NXT's Halloween Havoc, which I believe airs 1 hour earlier than our watch-along starts. So these two shows will overlap. If you join us at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific here for the Classic, I'm going to have NXT's Halloween Havoc on the screen, and we're going to have dual Halloween Havocs going on. I really don't follow the NXT product, but I know a lot of you do, so we will have that up here as well, and we're going to kind of do a dual watch-along, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific tomorrow, Halloween Havoc 1991, and the link is already up on my page. We should be here Monday night. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be, because Raw was not taped this week. Raw should be live this week, I believe, right? It was taped last week. So, or no, was it taped the week before? I don't know what's going on. Assuming Raw is live on Monday, which I think it is, we will be here doing a watch-along of Raw as well on Monday. So just keep that in mind for this week. I will try to get you guys Crown Jewel predictions, probably an upload video midweek sometime. And then we'll be here, of course, next weekend for Crown Jewel review, not a watch-along. Too early in the morning for me to do a watch-along. We'll be here for a review. And then next Sunday, week from tomorrow, we'll do another classic. Just got to figure out what that's going to be. Probably something Survivor Series related. So keep all that in mind for this week. Before we jump into the news, let me jump into the chat and just say hello to a few people. Try to knock out some channel members and super chats here early. Actually, I'll just hit everybody. Always Radio, Gilbert Arbalo, Jacob A, King Azza, Red Raven Rucker, my boy Zane G, good to see you. Tatanani, Colin Wright, Joshua Aparicio, Rob Strickland, Damian Drain, Big J, Victor Gonzalez. We've got Michael Kumo, we got Nicola, David Brown, Isaac, Rodrigo, Ben Espinoza, Jose Lopez, Luke McAllister. We have Spartan Sprinkles. We've got Denny Downbad. And let's knock out some supers, like $5 from Off Leather Wings. Thank you so much, my friend. When it's all said and done, will the Bloodline be the greatest storyline in WWE history? Greatest storyline. Maybe. I mean, a lot of people point to Austin and McMahon, but was that one continuous storyline? That was more like of a saga. So it depends on how you classify storyline as opposed to like a lifelong rivalry, something like that. But it definitely is on the list. I mean, they had some great stuff last year. And I feel like it's going to be picking back up again, especially next week on SmackDown with the spoilers. You'll see something pretty heartwarming, I think, next week. So I don't think the book is totally finished being written yet, but right now the Bloodline definitely can make a case. You know, they wanted to present their case to a jury as to why they're the greatest storyline in WWE history, then I would definitely listen to their argument. Let me see. We got Joshua in the house as well. Thank you for that. I hope you were having a Shackalicious day. I am having a Shackalicious day. I don't think there's any other days to have other than Shackalicious days. So yeah, definitely having one, my friend. Jimmy Anderson, good to see you all the way from Sweden. Thank you so much, dude. Greg, good evening, everyone in the chat. Appreciate that spot from you. Very generous drop from our friend Jimmy as always. And Luke McAllister is here with a fine looking 10 spot. What's up, Greg? That was a great episode of SmackDown, especially with the main event. I felt Cody and Gunther had a fun segment. Just wish they weren't saddled to having to promote a pointless belt. I really do not like this crown jewel bullshit that they're doing. I really don't like. Cody tries he might last week, really worked hard to put that over. Last night, however, I felt like Gunther completely owned him in that segment. And I don't think that this champion versus champion thing is really going to benefit anything or anybody other than perhaps appeasing Saudi Arabia and presenting them, you know, the illusion that they're having something important happen here. But the problem with these champion and champion matches, you know, Cody and Gunther, if one of these guys has to get pinned, you're talking about either Owens interfering and costing Cody or Goldberg interfering and costing Gunther. I can't see either one of these guys beating the other clean. I would not do that right now. So it just makes you... It's kind of like the King of the Ring, you know, Triple H says there's going to be winners. You know, here he's saying there are going to be winners, and I appreciate that. It'd be a nice, refreshing change to actually get a clean finish, but it's what you're going to do to that person in his loss moving forward that I worry about, and I agree with you completely that it's a pointless belt. 100%. Right on. All right, that's Barry MK, good to see you. Max Pokebro, we got JDT, and we have John, new channel member. Let me check this text message real quick. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Can I pause for 30 seconds? 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Sometimes work needs you and it's urgent. So I just needed to shoot a quick text message back. Sorry about that. Thank you. That's what happens when you do podcasts live. But the good news is I think I'm going to have a little bit extra time today to do this podcast, so we will not be in a big hurry to get this done. Right on. So we've got everybody set now. We've got the shout outs. I've let you guys know what is going to happen here on the channel in the next couple of days. Now we need to get into some wrestling news. And I was wondering today, I'm like, oh God, what should I start with? What should I start with? WWE and Vince McMahon have been hit with yet another lawsuit. So let's talk about that first. This is going to be regarding the Ring Boy sexual abuse scandal that's been ongoing for the past 40 years now. And in a press release on, I believe it was October 23rd, so that would have been Wednesday, a new lawsuit was filed against WWE, Vince McMahon, Linda McMahon, and TKO on behalf of the Ring Boys, the surviving Ring Boys who survived the sexual abuse in the 80s. And here's what the press release says. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's long. I'm going to read you the two most important paragraphs. In Baltimore, October 23rd, 2024, DeCillo, Levitt, and Murphy, Falcon and Murphy, filed a major lawsuit today against WWE LLC, Vincent K. McMahon, and Linda McMahon, and the TKO Group Holdings on behalf of 5 survivors of sexual abuse. The survivors, John Does 1 through 5, were known within WWE as, quote, ring boys, underage boys hired by the organization's ringside announcer and ring crew chief, Melvin Phillips Jr., to assist with errands and other tasks in preparation for WWE's wrestling shows. The underage ring boys were groomed, exploited, and sexually abused by Phillips, who targeted children from broken homes. His sexual assaults occurred not only at the wrestling venues, but also in hotel rooms and other locations where Phillips would shuttle the boys in plain sight. Defendants were fully aware of the systematic and pervasive abuse and did nothing to prevent or stop it. The FBI previously identified at least 10 ring boys abused by Phillips, but there are likely countless others who have suffered in silence for decades. So there was more in this statement, but basically after, it's not that shocking that after that Vince McMahon documentary came out on Netflix that there might be some more shoes to drop here. And after all these years, the surviving members of the scandal now coming forward to try to hold WWE responsible or liable for what happened to them back in the day, I hope they get justice. I hope they get some sort of a settlement. This is something that we've always known about. I think I first heard about the ring boy shit was back when I was a teenager in that Phil Donahue show and all that stuff was going on. And throughout the years, over the next 30 years, you would hear a lot about this, especially about Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin, who wound up leaving the company and never coming back. But Mel Phillips left and came back. Pat Patterson left and came back. Now, we've also always heard a lot of accusations about Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson has been a longtime beloved member of WWE's family, respected by wrestlers, a genius in terms of putting matches together, an openly gay man who had a partner of, several decades who passed away, I believe, in 1998. But Pat's behavior has been brought into question before. And in the Netflix documentary, you heard Tony Atlas say, Pat Patterson grabbed my pecker in the locker room countless times. And years ago, before Roddy Piper passed away, he did a shoot interview with Sean Oliver, Kayfabe Commentaries. They did great work back in those days. I used to love watching those. And Piper talked about Pat Patterson in that and, had some very dark kind of comments. Pat Patterson didn't like me. Roddy talked about when he was young, he was a very pretty young boy when he was a kid, and hinted at some things that might have gone on with him and Pat Patterson. Tony Atlas says the same thing on the Netflix documentary. Now, I'm not saying these guys are wrong at all or lying at all. I'm not saying that. I do, however, find it weird that both of these men were okay with being roommates with Pat Patterson on Legends House. I just feel like if something that weird and uncomfortable happened to you, wouldn't you want nothing to do with that man? But, then again, Pat has got, was in really good with WWE. He was very close with Vince McMahon. Maybe Pat was bulletproof. Pat was untouchable. It's not going to be advantageous or beneficial to any wrestler to have a problem with him because it could affect, their status in WWE. Who knows? But I've always found that weird. Even back 10 years ago when Legends House aired, we knew of these Pat Patterson accusations. And of course, the finale of that was Pat officially coming out to everyone as gay, but everybody has always known. And Pat has been accepted in wrestling as a gay man, which I always thought was pretty incredible that he seemed to be accepted back in the day in the 70s and 80s. Everybody knew Pat's sexual orientation. And in a business that can be as homophobic as wrestling, the fact that he never ran into any issues there, or if he did, it's not many that you heard about. I always thought that was something good, that he wasn't, that wasn't being held against him. I'm sure some people disliked Pat or had an issue with him or whatever, but it didn't really affect Pat in his career. The only thing that really affected Pat in his career is the brief time he had to take hiatus from WWE because of this shit. So it feels like Mel Phillips was obviously the ringleader here, but there were some others involved. And these are stories that we have always heard for the past 4 decades. They haven't been pretty to listen to. Admittedly, I really wanted to not believe that Pat did these things. I've met Pat Patterson a couple of times. I've always admired, Pat and what he brought, and especially, backstage in WWE and as a wrestler as well. And when he passed away, WWE's always held Pat in very, very high regard. And there are always going to be people, like a Bruce Pritchard or Vince or people who work closely with Pat that are going to defend him because they knew him well and worked closely with him and considered him a friend. But if any of this stuff was going on, back in the day, especially with Pat Patterson, and he was taking advantage or manipulating, young boys. And if you read the entire press release here, it talks about how a lot of the ring boys were targeted, from broken homes, and things like that. Ring boys that you could develop trust with. That's the sickening part here. The fact that there was such a manipulative side to this, that there was a specific type of young man that they were, or boy, I should say, that they were, specifically Phillips, was targeting. And and how he would openly do this, shuttling him into hotel rooms. And sometimes things would be happening right in front of the other wrestlers or other people that worked in WWE. And this was kind of like understood. And as the years went on in the 90s and early 2000s, when I was like a shoot interview junkie, whenever this would be brought up from to wrestlers who were there at the time that this was happening, none of them acted like they didn't know what was going on. No, I've never heard about that. What are you talking about? They all knew. They all mentioned something. Yeah, I never really saw anything, but, there was a lot of talk, and so people were hearing things. People were aware of these things, but yet nobody stepped forward. Nobody did anything. This is Jerry Sandusky shit, and the fact that it was always just so widely ignored, and that, as a fan, I'm sitting there with, the moral dilemma. Do I just pretend this shit about Pat Patterson was, has never happened? Like, how does anybody deal with that? Wrestling fans shouldn't have to deal with this shit. It should be the company that has to worry about that stuff. But, wrestling fans, having to fight with some moral dilemma because of shitty things that have happened in WWE, that shouldn't be on us. But for the ring boys who are now probably in their 50s, likely older than me, back in those days, 84 and 85, I was only 8 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old. I can't do math. So these boys were older than me, probably 4, 5, 6, 7 years younger than, or older than me, which would put them in their early 50s now. So if they have a chance, to finally put some closure to this, these are boys, and this goes for any situation, not just the WWE situation, but anybody who was, sexually taken advantage of in any way as a young person, and as a person old enough to form memories and remember that stuff. I can't imagine just having to live with that in my mind, live with that, anger, embarrassment, whatever it is, or whatever prevented you from coming forward before, but also the internal rage and anger one must feel towards the people who did this to you. Now you're a grown man, Vince always said, I wish my stepfather would have lived long enough so I could kill him, or I forgot what he wanted to do, but he wanted to kill his stepfather, And I would think that would be the same for a lot of these guys, And Mel Phillips, is he alive? Is Mel Phillips still alive? I think he is. I tried to look him up, but there's like an old football player who's also Mel Phillips, and I was having trouble finding the WWE Mel Phillips. I believe he's in his 80s now. If he is alive, I don't remember. Pat Patterson obviously has passed away. So now with TKO, owning WWE, they're going to be the ones, that might be on the hook for this in terms of any settlement. Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon, who were the sole owners of the company at the time, are also named here. So in terms of anything criminal, and again, I ain't no lawyer, we just here talking about wrestling here on this channel. That's it. We don't know any lawyer stuff, but I don't know if anything criminal is going to come out of this. This feels like it might be something just kind of settled, and that's fine too. If these 5 surviving men can get any sort of a payday for what they had to go through, I am all for that. Take WWE to the fucking cleaners, if you ask me. So we'll see how this all progresses, but when it comes to Vince McMahon, it just keeps piling on. He is in major fucking trouble here. And it just, this is just another really just ugly, dark side of the business. And it's hard to even try to say the words silver lining in something like this. But, as a fan of 47 years old and somebody who's known about this story for 35 plus years now, this has been in the back of my mind for a long time. Maybe not only for the surviving members of the ring crew who was assaulted and abused, this can give them closure, and if it does, maybe, a byproduct of that closure will be the fans can get some, and maybe even WWE can get some. We finally answered for this. TKO, they're just the company umbrella. They had nothing to do with this. But for TKO, it would probably be nice for them to put that behind them as well. Just try to wash out as many scandals as you can. Obviously, Vince McMahon is being dealt with, and that whole nasty situation with Janelle Grant and every other gross fucking thing he's done. But now this is the other big one. This is the other big scandal. The steroid stuff has been answered for. Vince went to trial, was acquitted. That's done. Vince's disgusting behavior still ongoing with the Janelle Grant lawsuit, federal investigation and search warrant served on him. That stuff is all in progress right now. And now, with this Ring Boy scandal, it would be nice to put some closure on this. It would be nice to pay the victims and their families for what they went through and at least try to close this chapter and move WWE and TKO into a much more positive, brighter future, because these are dark, disgusting underbellies of their company that have been following them around, this dark cloud over their head for so long that maybe this, can be a cleansing, even if it costs them, a few $1,000,000. If you ask me, that's not enough. It should cost them a lot more than that. But hopefully this can be settled, and hopefully in the next couple of years, we can fully put every gross thing attached to Vince McMahon behind us as wrestling fans. That would be nice. And having this situation that took place back in the 80s resolved would be, I would say, a positive, for WWE's future moving forward into this post Vince McMahon era in the company, So we'll see. But yet another kind of a bombshell lawsuit, and it looks like hopefully these surviving members, there are 5 surviving Ring Boys that are known at this point, and we'll see if more start coming forward. Would not be surprised if it turns out to be more than just 5 names. Now, speaking of sketchy shit in WWE, let's move on to something a little bit less serious than the Ring Boy scandal and lawsuit. And let's talk about WWE potentially messing with our Uncle Dave, trying to discredit Dave Meltzer regarding Kevin Owens' contract situation. Now, we've seen Kevin Owens undergo this change. He's kind of turning heel. When we heard about Kevin Owens' contract being up and WWE yet to re-sign him, I have always been of the belief that he should stick around. A couple of years ago, when we talked about his contract coming up, I thought him jumping to AEW might be kind of fun. Even though Kevin Owens has not been a world champion in WWE, I very much think he should stay there. I think that's a good place for him. I like Owens in WWE, and if they can re-sign him, under the condition, hey, we're going to give you another run with the title, I would love to see what they're going to do. And with Owens turning heel and with the language being used when speaking about Kevin Owens, specifically from Triple H last night, talking about how dangerous he is and Orton better watch his back and all of this, it really feels like Owens is undergoing a change right now. He wasn't on SmackDown last night. And next time we see him, it'll be interesting to see how his demeanor is. Will he look any different? Is it time for a cosmetic change of some kind? Maybe a new haircut, maybe new facial hair, maybe new ring attire. Something, I don't know. Maybe some new music. Or maybe a different type of working style in the ring. We don't know. So when Owens started going through this transition, I've been a big advocate for him winning the championship again, for him winning a world title for the first time in 8 years. It's been criminal that he has not been able to find his way back to world championship gold. And I've been under the suspicion, based on what I've seen so far, that they're going to do it. They're going to put the belt on him. Now, the big question, though, is what's going on with his contract. Now, I haven't really been thinking much about it. I have just been under the assumption he'll probably stay. If he's not signed his contract, maybe he's about to, because WWE is about to push him and turn his character in this new direction and possibly win back the championship or win a championship, beat Cody for his title. And so maybe the only thing left to do is sign your name here and we're going to go forward with this plan. But as it turns out, Kevin Owens may have re-signed with WWE a few months ago. Joe Lanza from the Voices of Wrestling flagship podcast had this to say about WWE attempting to discredit Meltzer by not reporting the Kevin Owens signing. And I quote, "I got tipped off last week that Kevin Owens has been signed with WWE for months, but they are not leaking that to their media that they want to report it. They are waiting it out because they want Meltzer to start suggesting that AEW could get in the mix and maybe sign him, because then they'll leak out that Owens is signed because it makes it look like Meltzer is wrong." That's the games they play. But I think Dave either got tipped off to the same information or he sniffed it out because he put out a report in the Observer. Our friend Cassidy Haynes at bodyslam.net quote tweeted that and said, "This is basically what I heard as well." Now that makes a lot of sense that Owens would have re-signed a few months ago based on how they're using him currently on TV. But when it comes to, discrediting Meltzer, if you know anything about Meltzer's, kind of writing style or his reporting style on his podcasts and whatnot, a lot of what he does is just what I do. Just speculate. You look at things. If you hear something like Kevin Owens' contract is coming up soon and he is not re-signed, anybody, regardless of who you are, whether you're a Dave Meltzer or whether you're a sexy bald podcaster like me, regardless of who you are, everybody is going to probably say the same thing out of their mouth. Could he go to AEW? They might want him. Not just Meltzer, but anybody, if they see that Kevin Owens is a free agent, they should say to themselves, AEW should try to grab him. Why would you not want to grab anybody and try to sign somebody the caliber of Kevin Owens / Steen? You absolutely want to bring him in. So if Dave Meltzer was going to suggest that maybe Owens could jump to AEW, is that really necessarily reporting, or is that Dave just coming to the same conclusion that any human being wrestling fan would come to? Of course he might go to AEW. If he's not re-signed his WWE contract and he doesn't intend to, and he's going to be a free agent, where the hell's he going to go? OVW? No, he's going to go to AEW. That's probably where he's going to go. Take a huge fucking payday from Tony Khan. But I have always doubted that that was going to happen, and I've been talking about Kevin Owens and fantasy booking his future under the assumption that he's not going anywhere. So WWE, trying to discredit Dave, it's weird that they're using this to do it, because Unless what they were assuming Meltzer would do is start making stuff up. Like, I heard from somebody in WWE that Owens is looking to jump to AEW. Then that would be a lie. But Meltzer just coming to the same assumption that any of us would come to. That's just pretty normal. Like if Owens' contract is coming up, we would all say, oh, maybe he'll jump to AEW. Dave just happens to do that out loud or in a newsletter or on a podcast. So I don't even think if he said that, it would be necessarily reporting it unless he tried to be specific about it. I talked to a high-ranking WWE official today, and they said Kevin Owens is definitely looking to jump to AEW. And then one day later, it's announced that Kevin Owens has been signed to WWE for months. That either means Dave was lying or Dave got played. But in terms of this, does WWE not have anything better to do? They are doing really good business right now. WWE is fun. It is a fun promotion to watch right now. I'm having a blast with most of the things they're doing. A few things aside that I might take issue with. For the most part, I can't say enough good things about where WWE's product has been for over a year now. So why would this even be close to a priority for them? Dave, by the way, just celebrated a birthday a couple days ago. Happy birthday, Uncle Dave. I have never had an issue with Dave Meltzer. I think that, wrestling, there's a big stick up the ass of a lot of wrestling fans when it comes to wrestling journalism. We've talked about that before. A lot of wrestling fans have unhinged anger when it comes to that stuff. And I think it's fucking silly. I have always taken wrestling news about as seriously as I've taken pro wrestling. I have been reading and following wrestling news and gossip for over 35 years. I've been watching wrestling for 40, reading gossip and bullshit for about 35. Never in those 3.5 decades of me watching wrestling, reading wrestling news, have I read Dave's Chatterbox or a wrestler or a Dave's newsletter or a Chatterbox from Georgie Macropolis or anything from Apter on OneWrestling.com or any of the toilet paper torch or anything that any way that I used to consume wrestling news and gossip in the past. Never once, even when it was reported that Mabel would be the third man, I was never mad. Reading wrestling news and speculative gossip has always been, for me as a wrestling fan, nothing but fun. Never infuriating, never a source of drooling, red-faced, head-exploding anger where I'm screaming at Meltzer, I'm screaming at Sean Ross Sapp, and there's some outfits and some wrestling news sites and journalists that do everything right. I'm a big fan of Sean and the crew over there at Fightful. They do good work over there. They've got connections. Nobody would ever tell him anything. Oh, yes, they do. He's got plenty of connections. He's got plenty of ways to report wrestling news properly and with, journalistic integrity. But then there's also people who just speculate. And Dave has been around for so long, a lot of what he reports is him speculating out loud. Him coming to the same conclusions or assumptions that a lot of us would come to. Only difference is Dave has a newsletter, Dave has a podcast. So when he's just rambling and he's just saying stuff, people are saying, oh, he's reporting all this and then it's not wrong, or then it comes out not to be true and, they're jumping up his ass. I'm like, it's not supposed to be this way. This isn't like real life. This is pro wrestling. There should be nothing in wrestling journalism that should anger you. Read about somebody potentially resigning or potentially jumping ship. Why are we mad? What's going on in your life that would make you this angry about this? You know how many false or incorrect reports or assumptions I've read from Dave in 35 years? A lot. And when I met him, I still wanted to take a picture with him because he's a fucking legend. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not waiting in the bushes, waiting in the wings to pounce on a journalist for either reporting something wrong or speculating something wrong. Those are not priorities in my life. So I always have felt that when you read wrestling news, you should take into consideration who and what it is that you're reading. There's a lot of garbage sites out there, and there are a lot of sites that do good work. As long as you know which one you're reading, and things are properly, sources are properly cited and vetted and that type of thing. It's all I ask for. If you get a story wrong, get a story wrong. I'm not upset or obsessed with that at all. And so Dave, throughout the years, I enjoy reading the newsletter. I enjoy what's the thoughts that are ricocheting around in that man's head. That's all I'm reading it from that perspective. I'm not reading it to be mad. I'm not hate reading anything. I'm reading stuff, oh, that would be funny, or oh, that's cool, or that's interesting. It's supposed to be fun. Take it as seriously as you take pro wrestling, and, you'll probably live a much more stress-free life. So you have the personalities like the Eric Bischoffs and stuff who are just obsessed 24/7, especially with Meltzer. And I'm like, I think after all these years, we kind of know Dave by now, don't we? Like, who is surprised by anything that Meltzer is going to say? Take him with a grain of salt. I always have. Why is it so difficult for everybody else? I see a lot of wrestling fans just fucking screaming, angry, mad. They're like 23 years old. I'm like, bitch, Jesus Christ. Dave's been doing this before your fucking mom was born, much less your ass. So I don't even understand like what the outrage is when you look at what Meltzer or Sean or anybody like that, what they're reporting is attached to. It's attached to pro wrestling. This is a fun, wacky-ass form of entertainment that we're all lucky enough to enjoy. And I feel like the rest of the world misses out on something that we know. We know a big secret that they don't know, and that is wrestling can be fun as all hell. But what's happening, when it comes to the tribalism and the obsession with wrestling journalism, with hating wrestling journalism, 99% of it's unfounded and misguided. It's like, do you really want to just hoover all the fun right out of your life, and out of pro wrestling by being that way? So my point is, not only with the fans, but with WWE, I would like to believe that Triple H and the WWE have bigger fish to fry than worrying about fucking with Uncle Dave. You know what I mean? So if they're, maybe this is just a little side thing that they're doing for fun. Hey, let's just troll Dave and see if we can get him to report that Owens is going AEW. If that's just something internally they're doing for fun, I guess no harm done. But if they're actively, trying to manipulate ways to discredit Meltzer when you already have such a large portion of the wrestling population that already feel like he's discredited and jump on any case to complain or bitch or yell or scream about him or any other wrestling journalist, he's kind of, and I say this with love because I like Dave, he's already discredited, like even me, even somebody who likes Dave Meltzer a lot. Like I said, I've been saying this for years. When I read Dave's reports, I read it from the perspective of somebody who's reading Dave. I know it's coming from Meltzer, and therefore I act accordingly. I know how seriously to take it. I know how to use my own reasoning, and critical thought to try to figure out if this might be a legitimate claim or not. It's just all, I don't understand why anybody's mad. That's my point. And with WWE going out of their way like this to see if they can make Meltzer look stupid, I don't know. Y'all got anything better you want to be doing? No? You want to maybe worry about your pay-per-views or something like that? Mania season's coming up. You want to book that card or you just want to fuck with Meltzer? It's up to you guys. Anyway, that's kind of a funny story. I got a kick out of it. And I am not done talking about Dave Meltzer either. Just making sure that's good. Speaking of AEW and people signing with AEW, it's probably not going to be Kevin Owens, but their music man is sticking around. Mikey Ruckus has agreed to a new deal with AEW, so their music guy is sticking around. Here's what Fightful Select had to say about this yesterday. Fightful Select has learned that AEW music producer Mikey Ruckus recently agreed to a new deal with AEW, which will keep him with the company moving forward. Ruckus has been a part of AEW since 2019 and has produced a number of their most iconic themes. When details emerged regarding the future of WWE's music division, a WWE source reached out to Fightful and confirmed that the company reached a new agreement with Ruckus in recent months. So Sean's report here says that a WWE source reached out to him and said that Ruckus signed with AEW, which means, did they try to contact him? Was it WWE that phoned up Ruckus and he's like, nah, man, I've already signed with AEW, and that's how the story, that might be the case. And I will say this about AEW, I like their theme music. WCW back in the day, I always thought that was a problem area for them. They had a couple of themes that were bangers. They had some good ones there. I always like William Regal's and Juventud Guerrera's and the Four Horsemen. And there's definitely Benoit's theme was good. There was some gems in there, but a lot of it was just very, very generic sounding. For all of the money WWE or WCW was making, crazy, attendance figures, pay-per-view buys, merch. They were on top of the world. Their production was so small time looking compared to WWE's. Even when they were kicking their ass, even when they were blowing them away in the ratings, WCW's music and production felt like something that a kid, a first-year college production student could do. And it always blew me away. Now with AEW, when they first started, I thought that their theme music, I still do, was very, very solid. I thought that it was music that could stand up to some of WWE's iconic themes. And then when Def Rebel takes over and their shit largely sucks, and fans do not like Def Rebel at all, and luckily it does look like they are on their way out of the company, and WWE is going to be changing some of their music development as well, that I think AEW, is more on even keel with WWE. It's been a while since I've really looked at the theme music lists side by side for me to decide which company currently has the better theme music. I might still give the nod to WWE, but AEW is not where WCW was. Their themes are recognizable. I mentioned this 4 or 5 years ago about AEW. I said one huge thing that sets them apart from WCW is that they have the ability to make themes that you associate with specific wrestlers. I always thought Britt Baker's was like that, and MJF and Darby, and a lot of the wrestlers there, you hear their theme and you immediately associate it with that wrestler. And sometimes in WCW, it wasn't like that. Shout out to our friend Kyle from the Apron Bump podcast. Kyle, if you're watching, what's up? Posted a tweet today of Pat Tanaka using Goldberg's theme on Nitro before Goldberg debuted. You know, so sometimes they just had, it's like WWE reusing the Orient Express theme, you know, for any Asian wrestler that came out at all. It was just ridiculous. Kurt Angle's got recycled a few times. The Patriot used it. When I used to go to WWE shows back in the day, house shows, Mark Henry was using it. They sent him to OVW and he came back. He was using it for a while. And then Kurt Angle. And also, that was I was trying to think of the Pug. Remember the Pug, like 1996? What was his name? What was the Pug's name? Little wrestler. He was using the Steiner Brothers theme. So recycled themes have always been a thing, but in AEW, I've always thought that they had really good themes, especially for a lot of their top stars. So Ruckus staying around, that's a win. You know, that's who you want there. You know, in my mind, he's always done really well also working on short notice. There was a bunch of times when guys started, you know, debuting left and right in the company, and he was like under the gun to come up with theme music or to come up with something in a very short amount of time, working all night in some cases to get the theme done in order for said wrestler to be able to debut on Dynamite or the pay-per-view or wherever it was. And he's a big asset to them. So as a fan, I'm glad he's staying around because I think AEW does have really good theme music. It's not all good. Some themes aren't that great, but for the most part, I think they have good theme music and better overall than WCW when they were riding high. Speaking of the company Ruckus works for, AEW has filed 3 trademarks this week. On October 25th, AEW filed a trademark, quote, AEW Max Month, AEW WrestleMax, and WrestleMax. So we'll see if MJF is going to take credit for all of this. But obviously, this is going to be stuff that they're going to be putting on Max. So we got a AEW Max Month, which makes me wonder what that means to have a Max Month. I'm hoping the entire library is available, but if you're having something called AEW Max Month, I'm wondering if there's just for 1 month they're airing limited content. I don't know what any of that's going to mean yet. Who knows? Also, WrestleMax and AEW WrestleMax are trademarked. So that might just be the name of the content. Check us out on WrestleMax, you know, or something. I don't know yet, but obviously all 3 of those are going to be streaming related on Max. Let's see, what's next in my news here? Yeah, I know MJF's theme is stock music, but it still counts. I know that if I mention a theme song, it doesn't automatically mean Ruckus did it. But my point is, AEW overall has recognizable themes, and Ruckus is a big part of that. So him sticking around is good. Thank you, JDT. Yes, listen to him. Please give this video a thumbs up if you don't mind. Smash that thumbs up button. I didn't ask for that earlier on, but likes are very, very important, and I could use them. Yeah, Gilbert, I do not see Jim Johnson coming back to WWE. Jim Johnson would now be, I believe, in his 70s. So it's not the old days anymore. You know, Jim Johnson made iconic themes, but you know, he was also a lot more dialed into the talent, the product, what was going on back then. And I think the CFOs were good. You know, I don't think that Jim Johnson is the only answer. I think you can definitely improve your music situation. It sounds like WWE is doing that. And I expect them to succeed at that. You know, they're going to pay top dollar for whatever, you know, however they need to make their music satisfiable to not only them, but to the audience. And music that can, you know, be identifiable with the talent that's coming to the ring, because that's the way it was with Jim Johnson, you know, Razor and Brett and Shawn and Undertaker, you know, those themes, you knew exactly who was coming out when those themes started. All right. We talked a lot about on Monday the situation, the breaking news on Monday with the lovely and talented Samantha Irvin. I want to say Irving all the time. Samantha Irvin, like Michael Irvin. Samantha Irvin announced that she is going to be departing WWE and posted a very lengthy, heartfelt goodbye to the fans and her peers and colleagues and all of that, and the whole WWE universe as a whole. And that same day, it was announced that Lillian Garcia was going to be not only filling in for her on Monday Night Raw that night, but was also going to be taking over and has been re-signed to the company full time. So that immediately made me think that Samantha Irvin announcing her WWE departure was not a total shock to WWE. And she pretty much confirmed that. Now, Ricochet later on that day did tweet in response to a fan that said she's going to AEW. He said she is not going to AEW. And then I think it was like the next day, a fan said something about Samantha Irvin, left WWE on just days' notice or something like that. And she quote tweeted and said, or maybe not quote tweeted, but responded and said months. This has been going on for months. And that's what I had speculated on. It was just a few months ago. I said, look, I'm not saying that couples and spouses can't work in separate companies. We already see several examples of that across AEW and WWE. But when Ricochet left for AEW, it did make me question Samantha's future. Not because I'm assuming to know anything about their personal lives or what their, aspirations are. I'm just saying if you have the opportunity to work with a spouse or a loved one, you're probably going to jump on that. Like, Adam Cole went to AEW, Britt was there. They're not together anymore, but I'm sure that played a factor. And so I was hoping, I was mentioning, on the show here, I said, I love Samantha Irvin so much and she is so good at her job. I don't want her to leave. I'm hoping that WWE or she gives them some assurance that, yeah, even though that, my fiance and future husband is now working for the competition, I have no intention of leaving as well. And then, we hear that she's leaving after she's been developing such a good relationship with the talent. Like, I hate to say this, but I think Chelsea Green should go wherever Samantha Irvin goes. We're never going to get the Chelsea Green again. That makes me extremely sad. So I'm really bummed that Samantha Irvin is leaving, and I wish her the best. And it doesn't sound like, at least immediately, she's going to be going to AEW. And if she was spending the last couple of months working out her departure or release, I still don't know. And she wasn't let go. She wasn't like released or fired. We know that, but I would assume that she's under contract, or, ring announcers are also under contract. Maybe her contract was up at the end of this year and she said, hey, I'm not going to be re-signing. Can I just go now? And they work something out. We don't know. But one thing that she did confirm was something that I speculated on, and that is that she did not show up to Raw and quit and blindside Triple H and WWE, because they already had Lillian Garcia on standby, who was ready to fill in and resume her full-time role. Just a few months after she endorsed Samantha in the ring, the two shared that moment, I think at the beginning of the summer, maybe a few months back, that I just loved because I'm such a big Lillian fan and a Lillian mark, and I've fallen head over heels in love with the work that Samantha Irvin has been doing. So to see them hug and that baton being passed melted my heart. So, just a couple months later, now, boom, blindsided with Samantha Irvin is leaving WWE and Lillian Garcia is back in. Now, she had a couple of hiccups on Monday. She announced Dominic Mysterio out there with Liv, and he wasn't there. She announced LWO members out there who weren't there. She announced the number one containers match, which I don't know if I have a favorite container. I like Tupperware containers the best because they have the lids that can snap on. That's my number one container. Let me know whatever your number one containers are. But she was struggling a little bit. And I was like, man, is Triple H ribbing her? Are they purposely putting incorrect stuff on her cue cards? And she just, I don't know, maybe she's just a little bit rusty. Some of it wasn't her fault. Some of it was. But Lillian, I hope you're sitting down for this. Lillian Garcia is 58 years old. Did that register? This beautiful woman, who doesn't look a day over 33, is 58 years old. She's 11 years older than my ass. I just met her last year. She's wonderful. Love Lillian. I say that because when you get older, you don't retain the same voice level and stuff that you always do. You see that in dried up old rock and roll singers. Does Axl Rose sound anything like he did back in the 80s? No, listen to Jim Ross. Same thing. Lillian, she still sounds great. but I worry now that she's getting old, that maybe she might, have some instances where she, does a little tiny little botch or, misspeaks or something like that. I always thought she was tremendous. I think she's going to get back into her groove, when she's out there and gets some reps. She's going to be the Lillian of old, but she ain't young, even though she looks amazing. She is pushing 60 years old, so you have to wonder how long Lillian, was going to be back for. Is this just going to be 1 to 3 years, to bridge the gap between them finding their next top ring announcer? What's the girl from NXT, or the one that's on, what's her name? The one that's on SmackDown right now. Alicia Tyler? Her. She's tremendous. So you might need another one. Maybe you want another woman. Maybe you want to find another dapper yapper. I don't know. But for now, Lillian is back, and it's great to see her back. WrestleMania tickets went on sale this week, and holy shit, they are expensive. Now, I never buy my wrestling tickets in pre-sales or anything like that. I'm always like a StubHub guy. I know that's stupid. I know you can sometimes pay through the nose for that, but I like buying on third-party sites because I can just pick and choose where I'm going to be. And I haven't bought tickets through Ticketmaster in 30 years or 25 years, but I know back in the day, whenever I would call and try to get tickets for shows, they're going to give you the best available, and that might not be what you want. That's how I landed on the floor sometimes. I was on the floor for 2 big Monday Night Raws. The This Is Your Life with The Rock and Mankind, and the big cage match with Benoit and Angle, where Angle moonsaulted off the top. I was like, 10 to 15 rows back for both of those events, and I hated it. I hated being on the floor. But when I called up Ticketmaster or whatever the fuck to get my tickets, that was technically the best available. But I'd rather be 3 rows up on the first level than 15 rows back on the floor. You know what I mean? So I just like to buy them where I can have a little bit more control of where I'm going to be. But based on some of these ticket prices, they are looking like they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 10 times more than what I paid for our seats at WrestleMania 39. And we had great seats. We had 50-yard line seats for WrestleMania 39. First level, not the floor, but one level up. 30 rows up, right in the middle. You can see my WrestleMania 39 vlog and recap on my channel if you want to see exactly where we were. But we had great seats, and I'm pretty sure for those seats I paid, and I don't remember exactly what, but I think we were paid in the neighborhood of $350 or $300 maybe, $300 to $350 per seat per night. So probably about $700 each for the 2-day pass. So both of us, Elizabeth and I, went to WrestleMania, 2-day passes, out the door for $1,500 or less, which ain't cheap, but compared to the prices that they are now, the same seats, I basically looked up right around where I sat for WrestleMania 39 at Allegiant Stadium. They're going for about $3,000 for a 2-day pass instead of $700 for a 2-day pass, which is what I paid for us last time. So Elizabeth and I this time are going to be in the upper deck. I think I'm just going to wait. Probably January, I'll pick up some seats. We're probably not going to worry too much about where we're sitting this year and that's usually a big deal for me. I like to sit close or have somewhat good seats. I usually like to pony up for that. It's money well spent, in my opinion, is to get really good seats. And you guys have seen all the shows that I've gone to. I always try to have good seats for the shows I go to. But this year, I think I'm just going to go for the experience. We're going to go up there. We're going to hang out with you guys, try to do as much as we can. We'll go to WrestleMania. We'll probably be way up in the cheap seats, but we're going to be there. Maybe not the cheapest seats, but I ain't going to be where I was at WrestleMania 39. So these prices are a little bit ridiculous, but hopefully people can still find some good deals if they search hard enough for them. There's also been I guess I should save this SNME speculation for SmackDown. We'll talk about that next. Yeah, Isaac, it's ridiculous. Just look them up. They're nuts. They are nuts. Before we get into SmackDown, let me knock out this $5 super chat from Ryan. Thank you, my friend. Kevin Owens should beat Randy Orton at Crown Jewel the same way he beat Sammy for the NXT title by ref stoppage. Yeah, Crown Jewel match is going to be weird because, how are you going to do that finish with Randy Orton? Is he going to lose like his I think they said 7th straight pay-per-view or something like that. He's lost a lot of pay-per-views in a row. Is that the only other one? Yep, it is. All right, so let's get into last night's SmackDown because it was a really fun show, and I've got a lot to say about this and Kevin Owens and everything going on here. So last night's show opens up with Randy Orton, who is coming through the back, through the gorilla position. His music starts playing, but as he's going through gorilla, he stops, and he starts talking to Triple H, who's, there at the desk, and you can't really hear what they're saying, but Triple H is telling him to go, get your ass out there, man. And then Orton's like, no, you come out here with me or whatever. So Orton goes out to the ring and asks Triple H to join him. So Triple H comes out. And Randy Orton, of course, wants a match with Kevin Owens after Kevin Owens, turned on him and attacked him, just like he attacked Cody Rhodes. And Triple H really... I half liked what he did, and also it almost felt like a retcon. I'm like, do you know who you're talking to here, Triple H? Like, you guys have to acknowledge your own history, and they kind of did. I think Randy Orton brought up the home invasion and whatnot, but to me it was weird that Triple H, knowing who he's in the ring with, his former Evolution cohort, somebody who he's had violent, brutal feuds with, had Mania matches with, had home invasion angles with, he's talking to Randy Orton as if Randy Orton should be afraid of Kevin Owens. You don't know what this guy's capable of. If I'm Randy Orton, I'm like, no, bitch, you don't know what I'm capable of. Do you not remember that I kicked your wife's head off once? Come on, man. So Triple H really talking up Kevin Owens, really kind of portraying him as this very, very dangerous threat that Randy Orton needs to be careful of because he's playing a dangerous game. And Orton takes some doing, but eventually wears down Triple H enough to where Hunter agrees. And to have Triple H out there for this, not Nick Aldis, is why I think they're really trying to make this sound serious. That's why I hope that Kevin Owens, we see a different Kevin Owens when we see him again, because if it's just going to be regular ass Kevin Owens, this entire segment would be done with Nick Aldis, not Triple H. So the fact that Triple H was in there, Triple H was the one that Randy Orton wanted to plead his case to. Give me Kevin Owens. And then when Triple H agrees to it, he says, watch your back. You better watch your back now, because now that I've given this match to you, I'm worried about you, type of thing. So Randy Orton now has his match against Kevin Owens at Crown Jewel. Now, you also have Cody Rhodes and Gunther at Crown Jewel as well. We'll get into that in a minute. But with Owens and Orton, I feel like Kevin Owens is going to be on a path to face Cody Rhodes, probably at Survivor Series. However, there's been an early leak for Saturday night's main event that is saying WWE is going to do Gunther versus Damian Priest, which they teased on Raw, and Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes on Saturday night's main event. The question is, will Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes be a return match from Survivor Series, or is Cody working with somebody else at Survivor Series? But before any of that happens, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens need to have their match. So there's so many different ways this can go, because on one hand, you can't beat Orton again, but if you're going to actually put the belt on Kevin Owens, where we sit right now, October 26th, I believe Kevin Owens is going to win the world title from Cody. That's what I think they're going to do. That's what I would do. Cody doesn't need to be champion going into Mania. He could win the belt back by then. He could have something much bigger going on with The Rock. We don't know that. But yet, I don't think there's any rule or law that insists that he needed to hold the title from WrestleMania 40 to WrestleMania 41. Doesn't have to be that way. So I kind of hope that Kevin Owens does take the title from Cody. If that's the case, when is that going to happen? If it happens at Survivor Series, that means Kevin Owens probably needs to beat Randy Orton at Crown Jewel. Or you might do a rematch between Owens and Orton at Survivor Series. Or better yet, you might do a triple threat with Cody and Owens and Orton for the title. There's a lot of different things they can do, but first and foremost, Crown Jewel, who goes over with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens? What happens there? And if Kevin Owens does win and goes into Survivor Series to face Cody Rhodes, maybe Cody survives? Because here's one thing I will say about Owens winning the championship again. If he does, there is one place and one place only that I want Owens to win the championship, and that's Saturday night's main event. If there's one way to make up for Owens not being world champion in 8 years, it's to have him do something that hasn't been done since Andre. When Andre won the title on the main event, I was 11 years old, and I was traumatized when he beat Hogan for the title with the double referee thing, and it was so surreal to see Hogan drop the belt. And what if they did an angle like that? What if they did a twin referee thing with Kevin Owens paying off some guy to have plastic surgery to look just like another referee, and he wins the title from Cody, and Cody is left there questioning the two twin referees. Go find yourself some twins, WWE. So what if they did something like that? Imagine how fun that would be. Imagine the WWE title, Cody's title, not even Gunther's, like Cody's, the WWE title, the belt that can be traced back all the way to Bruno. That championship changing hands on prime time on NBC, and Kevin Owens being the one to do it, being the one to take that title. Imagine the impact of that. That would be so great. And I could definitely get behind something like that. I would prefer Owens winning the championship on Saturday night's main event over Survivor Series. Maybe even over WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble, I should say. Maybe not Mania, but Royal Rumble or Survivor Series. I would prefer it to be on Saturday night's main event, especially if WWE wants to make Saturday night's main event a big deal, because these are going to be quarterly shows. Start it off with a bang, have a fucking title change on NBC on prime time. Because I'm assuming it's going to be prime time. It's not going to be like the old days, right, where it came on at 11:30 after the news in place of Saturday Night Live. This is going to be a prime time show. This is probably going to be 8 or 9 o'clock. So if you do that, or 7 o'clock, whatever. So if you do that and you have Kevin Owens beat Cody Rhodes for the championship in the main event of Saturday night's main event, and having the title change on NBC for the first time since 1988, when 33 million people tuned in and watched, that would be incredible. That would be so great for me to see as a fan if something like that went down. So that's what I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping the end game here, however they choose to book Crown Jewel and Survivor Series, I would love it if Kevin Owens won the WWE title on Saturday night's main event. So that's what I'm hoping they do. But if that is the plan, hypothetically, how do they get there? We got to do Randy Orton and Kevin Owens at Crown Jewel. And of course, you also have Gunther and Cody at Crown Jewel. Now, let's fast forward just a bit to that segment. Cody and Gunther did their promo. Cody invited Gunther to SmackDown so the two of them could talk and try to put over this stupid championship they're wrestling for in Saudi Arabia. And Gunther honestly owned Cody in this. I think Gunther hit Cody with too many facts that Cody couldn't handle, and that's why Cody attacked him. So they start fighting. Ludwig jumps in. They start beating down Cody. Randy Orton makes the save, and we've got Cody and Randy Orton taking on Ludwig and Gunther next week on SmackDown in a tag team match. And if you read the spoilers, you will know what's going to happen there. So Cody and Gunther now, of course, have their match at Crown Jewel, and Randy Orton and Kevin Owens have their match at Crown Jewel. So this is where it gets convoluted, and you know that it's that meme of that meme of the Always Sunny guy with the blackboard, or the whiteboard and all this stuff going on, or the Zach Galifianakis one where all the numbers are going from Hangover. It's like that. There's like so many different ways to dissect this. So let's start with the first one, the hypothetical that I said. Kevin Owens wins the championship at Saturday night's main event. So you backtrack from there. Okay, fine. Then what does Cody do at Survivor Series? Who does he wrestle? He doesn't get involved in the Bloodline stuff, does he? I hope not. I feel like that's got to be Sami Zayn. So that means Cody, if he's going to work with Owens at Saturday night's main event, he's he could work with Randy Orton, I suppose, but at Survivor Series. But I feel like now you might save Randy and Cody for WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble or something. So we'll forget about that for now. Cody's going to have to work with somebody at Survivor Series. I think that somebody might be Kevin Owens. I think it might be a situation where Cody faces Owens at Survivor Series and somehow he survives the match. Maybe he doesn't even win per se, but he walks out of Vancouver with the championship. And so then they book a rematch, Saturday night's main event. Maybe there's a stip. I don't know I don't know how gnarly they can get on NBC on prime time, but maybe it's a last man standing match or something like that. And Owens wins the championship. And maybe he's got some big, I would love a callback to 1988. I'm not saying do a twin referee thing, but some sort of callback to some really, really dirty trick that he's got up his sleeve. Something that nobody saw coming that enables him to win the championship. That leaves Cody in the ring stunned, which leaves the audience stunned as the show goes off the air on NBC. And if there are some non-wrestling fans watching that, they're like, I don't know much about wrestling, but that was pretty good. You know, something like that would be so much fun. So if Cody drops the title to Owens, can he lose to Gunther at Crown Jewel? You know, so I feel like if Cody loses at Crown Jewel to Gunther, it's probably Owens costing Cody the match, which then leads to the Survivor Series match. But then if Owens gets beat by Randy Orton, how are you going to justify giving Owens a title shot at Survivor Series when he's already lost his earlier title shot to Cody? Now he's just lost to Randy Orton. Why would he get a title shot at Survivor Series? So in order for Owens to get a shot at Survivor Series, he's got to beat Randy Orton at Crown Jewel. Does he beat Randy Orton just completely clean? Does he resort to these new tactics, this new Kevin Owens, and he puts down Randy Orton? You're not just going to beat Randy, especially if you probably still have plans for a Randy and Cody program down the line. Or is it some sort of a match where both guys get a championship match and Cody and Orton have to operate as opponents, but also try to coexist against a Kevin Owens threat? Could make for an interesting triple threat dynamic, I suppose. But if Owens were to lose, I don't know how he would get that title shot. Then you look at Gunther. If Gunther beats Cody, okay, you can have Owens come and interfere, whatever. But what if Gunther loses? There's only one possible way to make that work, and that is for Goldberg to interfere. Now, we also know that Damian Priest wants his match. He said as much on Raw, and now they're speculating that match is going to happen on Saturday night's main event. I've been of the belief that CM Punk is the one getting the title shot against Gunther. I've been of that belief ever since the night after or 2 nights after Bash at Berlin, after CM Punk won the strap match, got on the mic on Raw and said he wants Gunther. But then that brought out McIntyre and they set up their Hell in the Cell match. They would not have planted that seed if they're not going to do that match. So maybe Punk and Gunther is Royal Rumble. I always thought that Punk and Gunther would wrestle at Survivor Series. That would be the match. Punk said as much after Bash at Berlin. I just thought he needed to get past Hell in the Cell with Drew first before we get to that match with Gunther. So I still think it could be CM Punk. If Gunther beats Cody with help from Kevin Owens, then Cody, obviously, there's not a program going on here with Gunther because Cody's on SmackDown. So Gunther will come back to Raw now victorious, and he'll be looking for a Survivor Series challenger. That could be Damian Priest, but it also could be CM Punk. You have to wonder if they're going to make a number one contenders match or how any of this is going to work. Also, it should be noted that, well, no, this is this week. Shit. Dominic's got a match coming up, right? Against a former world champion. That could be CM Punk. So if it is going to be Punk and Gunther, it'll be interesting to see how they get there. But I feel like they wouldn't have planted that seed if that wasn't the plan. So maybe Punk and Gunther is, postponed or tabled for the Rumble, and Gunther's going to be working with somebody else, but he's going to have to work with somebody at Survivor Series. So much like the Owens and Cody match at Saturday night's main event, Gunther and Priest potentially happening there. Is that a title match or is that a return match? or on Saturday night's main event, maybe Kevin Owens goes into that match as champion and he defends against Cody and Cody wins the belt back. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. But with Gunther facing Cody at Crown Jewel and the scenario of Gunther losing, Goldberg. Why did they do all that shit with him? They brought him to Atlanta. I guess he lives there, so no big deal there. But then, they followed up with it a little bit on TV, right? And, well, I guess they did that whole thing in Atlanta at Bad Blood. That's when they had the confrontation with Gunther and Goldberg. So when that first happened, one thing that I pitched, I said, they might need someone for Gunther to beat at Survivor Series because Gunther should not be losing anytime soon. Cody, I could see dropping his title, but not Gunther. So I can't see Gunther taking any losses. And if he's already going to be scheduled to face Priest at Saturday night's main event, and for some reason CM Punk isn't the plan for Survivor Series like I've always thought it was, maybe Goldberg is the plan now. Can you imagine Punk getting bumped for Goldberg? And the scenario that I pitched a couple weeks ago when we talked about this for the first time was to essentially rebook the 2016 match between Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, but with Goldberg playing the role of Brock in this match with Gunther. And have Gunther beat him quickly, squash his ass. Goldberg probably wouldn't go for that. That's what a lot of fans say. He'll never agree to that. Maybe not. But I feel like if he wants to have one more match, if he wants to have one final retirement match, why not pass the torch? Why not give a little bit back? Do you remember the shock that we all felt that night when he beat Brock Lesnar, when Goldberg beat Brock Lesnar that fast? Just how our jaws dropped. I loved that shock finish. I love shock finishes. And to have Brock go down that definitively was like, wow, holy crap. I just liked it for the shock value. And if they were to do essentially the same thing, what a way for Goldberg to go out, because Goldberg is a guy that even into his older age was still winning world championships. So one could argue he's not a washed up old man. He's still somebody very credible that up until 4 years ago was a world champion. Right? Yeah, 2020, right? So for Gunther to put him down and essentially put him out of his misery, that definitively, I think, would do so much for Gunther. He's already a made man, in my opinion, but if they couldn't get that match with Brock Lesnar done, like I think was the rumor before WWE stopped working with Brock, then maybe Goldberg is the next best thing. And, if Triple H can present it to Goldberg like, look, you're going to get a huge payday for this. You're going to do a run-in in Saudi, then you're going to work Survivor Series, and Gunther's going to beat you, and he's going to beat you bad. Goldberg should be more than willing to do that as a legend of his status. Yes, I would be honored to put over the next generation because people did that for me. So the least I can do to give back to the business that gave me so much is to do what I can to ensure that it keeps moving forward and keeps producing more Goldbergs, So, for the fans, he's got too big of an ego. I feel like it needs to be more, your ego needs to be more about just wins and losses. I feel like your ego should also want to include respect of the audience. I have a lot of issues with Goldberg. I have never liked him as a professional wrestler. And it would do a lot with me. It would do a lot for a fan like me if Goldberg were to do something like that. Because that would make me think, okay, he's not a completely selfish asshole. He actually does give a shit. And him being willing to do that, kind of for the good of the business. And like I said, to ensure that stars like Goldberg continue to be made, these are the things that need to be done to help ensure that process continues and that cycle continues. And Goldberg can be a part of that cycle, that circle of life in wrestling. And if I was someone of Goldberg's caliber or status, that's something that I would also want for my legacy. It's not just about wins and losses and how many times I get to celebrate with the fans, but how often I did the right thing, how much I contributed to the evolution of the business. I didn't just stay here, take what I can get out of it and leave. I did and gave something back. So I don't see a downside in any way to booking a match like that. It doesn't have to be an exact squash, but maybe more like, maybe not necessarily Goldberg and Brock from 2016, maybe Brock and Cena from 2014. Maybe that's a little bit better of an example, because even though Brock squashed Cena, that match went on for a while, a few minutes, where Goldberg and Brock was like 90 seconds. So something like that, I think, would be great. And if that's the plan, if Gunther loses, I think that's the only way I'm really going to be okay with it. If Gunther is attacked by Goldberg or something, and then Cody beats him, and then Gunther gets to beat Goldberg to get his revenge, and then Cody winds up, even though Cody got that big win against Gunther, he's now going to drop his title to Kevin Owens. That would be the way I would balance it. But otherwise, my CM Punk idea might be wrong, because Punk and Gunther, I can't envision being a one-off, So if Gunther is going to face Priest on Saturday night's main event and face Punk at Survivor Series, unless Punk just gets beat, which is what I thought would happen, Punk would just straight up lose to Gunther. Maybe Seth Rollins interferes, who knows what WrestleMania match we're going to get. CM Punk and Seth Rollins. A lot of people are speculating Gunther and John Cena for the championship at WrestleMania. So Gunther's going to have to survive. So if he's going to work with CM Punk, I would maybe save that for the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber. Maybe CM Punk gets a match with Gunther. He loses, but gets a return match or something at Elimination Chamber. And you can do a scenario where, maybe Seth Rollins costs Punk the match against Gunther, and then Punk gets Seth eliminated from the Royal Rumble, and that's your WrestleMania match. Maybe something like that. You could replay that same scenario for Elimination Chamber. Seth costs Punk against Gunther. Punk costs Seth the Chamber. Something like that to set up Mania, maybe. So they could save Gunther and Punk for Royal Rumble and maybe a return match at Elimination Chamber, which would be a little, mini program with those guys there. With Gunther holding on to the title, going into WrestleMania then to face John Cena. And a lot of people are thinking John Cena might beat Gunther for the championship. I don't know how I feel about that yet. We'll talk about that in 2025, but that might be the case. But there's a lot to balance. When you think about these matches, you think about Gunther and Cody, and then Gunther and Goldberg, Gunther and Punk, Cody and Owens, Cody and Orton, Priest and Gunther. There's a lot to juggle and to figure out where all of these pieces fall. And I'm assuming that Triple H and WWE creatively have an idea where they're going and how it's all going to be set up for Mania. So we'll see how it all plays out, but definitely a lot to think about as it relates to Cody, Gunther, Owens, Crown Jewel, Survivor Series, and Saturday night's main event. We have 3 big shows in the next 6 weeks. That's a lot. So a lot going on. Anyway, also last night on SmackDown, we had Game 7 between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes with LA Knight as the special referee. LA Knight is an asshole because he screwed up this match, attacked both guys, and called the match a draw or whatever, and it ended in a no contest. Later on, Nick Aldis informed LA Knight that he will now have to defend his U.S. title against both of these guys in a triple threat at Crown Jewel. So LA Knight, not only is his character an asshole, his character's dumb, because now he only has a 33 and a third chance of winning, and he's not a genetic freak, and he is normal. So, yeah, he's in trouble. He is in trouble. Also last night, we saw Naomi defeating Candice LeRae with some help from Bayley. We had a big announcement for Crown Jewel. Nick Aldis, Adam Pearce, and Ava. So all 3 GMs were backstage to announce that at Crown Jewel, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill will defend their women's tag team championships against Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, Damage Control, and Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. So a big fatal 4-way there for the women's tags coming up at Crown Jewel. But now it's on to the men's tags. We had what I considered a dream match, Motor City Machine Guns taking on DIY in a #1 tag team title contenders match last night on SmackDown. So that match in and of itself was tremendous. It was great. 2 kick-ass fucking teams. By the way, if you haven't checked out the it's like on WWE's YouTube channel. it's like the Motor City Machine Guns vlog or whatever, arriving into WWE and seeing them come into the building and seeing so many people there, being greeted by Bobby Roode and Road Dogg and Sami Zayn, he goes, "Are you guys here? Are you guys like here?" That's awesome. I don't know. I don't think Sami Zayn has the worldwide interwebs like the rest of us do, but he didn't seem to know that they were coming in. And seeing everybody welcome them with open arms. Corey Graves calls them your favorite tag team's favorite tag team. I think that's a brilliant description of them because of, how long they've been together and what a great team they are and how they are really coming in, hitting the ground running big time. So they had their first match last week. Now, right off the bat, they're in a number one contenders match against DIY, which they win. So they win it here. And then after the match, the Bloodline shows up. So the Bloodline comes out and Solo, introduces themselves to Motor City Machine Guns. And they said that they're ready to fight and face these guys for the titles at any time. And Solo was like, all right, why don't we test that? Why don't we have an impromptu tag team title match right now? And Motor City Machine Guns, Aldis is hesitant, but they're like, no, let's do it. So they do it. Right now, the match that likely would have happened next week if SmackDown wasn't taped. But because it was taped, I think they knew having these spoilers get out, it would be much more fun to do this in a, kind of more of a live atmosphere. Even though I don't know if this was totally live last night. It might have been, taping might have started an hour before it went live. I don't know what the hell was going on last night with the taping. But in the main event of last night's SmackDown, Bloodline suggested the match. Aldis said yes. And now we're getting that match early. The Tongans versus Motor City Machine Guns for the tag team titles. We see Jimmy Uso make an appearance because Jacob and Solo are at ringside for this title match. So not only are the Guns not 100% because they just had a grueling match with DIY, they're now facing the Bloodline for the titles, and you got two beasts like Jacob and Solo out there who are getting involved. Jimmy hops the barricade. He's in a hoodie. He shows up, takes out Solo and Jacob, but then he gets overwhelmed. And that's when Roman Reigns' music hits. So he comes out to the aisleway. Solo and Jacob go try to attack Roman. He takes them out. Roman and Jimmy brawl with Jacob and Solo kind of to the back. And that's when the Tongans go to get a chair. I think Tongaloa goes to find a steel chair because the referee is knocked out. And that's when Jey Uso appears, hops the barricade. He's also in a hoodie. He super kicks Tonga. And then he gets in the ring and hits Tama Tonga with a chair shot and a super kick and a spear, taking him out. Motor City Machine Guns now, they resurface. Referee starts to wake up. They hit their finisher on, I believe, Tama Tonga for the win and win the tag team championships to an amazing ovation from the crowd. Crowd was so happy. They were chanting yeet. They knew Jey Uso was going to make an appearance here. And the Motor City Machine Guns, in only their third match, are now WWE tag team champions. I think that's great. I got no issue with this. This is a veteran tag team that's been around for a long time. There's no reason to build them up for 2 years. They are coming in as a already well-traveled championship team, and they won the titles almost instantly. Sometimes I don't agree when companies do this, but then sometimes it works. And this is an instance where it really did work. And a lot of people say, oh, Vince would have never done this. Maybe not. I'm no Vince fan, and I know Vince is a fucking idiot. But at the same time, there have been instances where Vince has pushed hard people that came from somewhere else. AJ Styles, that blew my mind in 2016, how quickly they put the title on him. Because that was very un-Vince-like. Road Warriors, same thing. When they came into the WWE, it took them about a year, but they eventually got to the championships. But I don't think anybody's come in this quickly in like match number 3 winning titles. But I think it's awesome that WWE shows that respect to a team like this. That even though they made their mark and created their legacy outside WWE, that is a legacy that still exists, and WWE is treating it with respect. And I think it's fun that they won the tag team title. So it would be really awesome if they wanted to throw one more match on Crown Jewel, Finn Balor, JD McDonough versus the Motor City Machine Guns would be wicked fun, would it not? That means you'd have to create 2 green Saudi tag titles, and we don't want that. But shit, man, maybe you could just chuck that match on for funsies. Nothing wrong with little funsies, right? So congrats to the Motor City Machine Guns. Very cool that Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin have won, prestigious tag team championship gold in only their 3rd match. Very cool. And congrats to them. A really fun SmackDown last night. And you will, if you want to read the SmackDown spoilers, you will see what goes down next week with Cody and Orton taking on Ludwig and Gunther. And you also have a Bloodline segment involving Roman, Jimmy, and Jay. By the way, after Motor City Machine Guns celebrated their championship victory, Jimmy and Jey Uso shared a hug in the ring. They reunited for a big hug, crowd popped, and Roman Reigns kind of watched on from the aisleway. Now, there still needs to be a reconciliation with Jay and Roman. We have not gotten there yet, but just watch next week's SmackDown. That's all I'm going to say. So last night's SmackDown I thought was pretty damn good. Last week on Raw, we were here watching that together. Braun Breaker regained his Intercontinental Championship. We had a feeling that was going to happen. And we had a feeling we would see the Bloodline, and we did. And it occurred to me about an hour before the main event, I put up on Twitter, I said, y'all, there is a good chance that Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu could share a ring tonight. Because if the Bloodline interferes and they get involved in this match, and you've got Breaker in there and Jacob in there, imagine that fucking match. And sure enough, what do we get? The unexpected confrontation. It was on the outside of the ring, not inside of the ring. And they faced off, and just that brief little encounter was enough to really get your juices flowing. So I'm actually happy that Breaker won back the Intercontinental Championship. We also saw the very questionable line backstage by Carlito when Damage Control was there talking to Adam Pearce, and they walk away, and Carlito walks in, and he's looking at the two of them, and he goes, I got to learn Chinese. And we were watching it. I heard the line, and I'm like, damn, I cannot believe he said that in 2024. Didn't really think much of it, was surprised, but, it was just like, oh, okay, we're still doing shit like that and looking at the date and what year it is and all that stuff. It might have been perfectly normal in 1999, but that was a quarter century ago, and now something like that, a line being allowed, like that being allowed to get out, is pretty crazy. Fightful Select had a report on it this week where, some people in WWE believed it was unscripted. I don't believe it was unscripted. I don't think Carlito would just say that unless they're trying to make Carlito the scapegoat for this. To me, it's one of those things to where it was just a lack of good judgment. And when you think Triple H, he's still got a little bit of that in him. Sometimes you hear Jim Ross, on commentary, and he'll say something pervy that he would say routinely in the Attitude Era. Nobody batted an eye at. But he hasn't been deprogrammed from that. And sometimes, he might mention, a woman's ass or something on Dynamite. And you're like, oh my God, JR, listen to what you're saying. And so, when you think about Triple H, this is a founding member of DX, somebody who made a career on sophomoric humor and stupid shit. And if, maybe he was behind that because this is something that he still thinks is funny. Remember back, I don't know what year it was, must have been like 98 or something. And DX went all over New York City and filmed themselves over New York City. They're like finding people with turbans and messing with them and shit. And, and speaking in different accents. And it's just like, God, Triple H, like if I'm Triple H and I'm sitting at the, at the top of this, WWE machine, and I know how many embarrassing fucking videos exist of me saying stupid shit, saying racist shit, saying the most insensitive, dumb, and ignorant crap. Even at the time it was accepted, it still doesn't age well, and it's still cringy as all hell to watch now. So, when you see what Carlito said, it's just like, I'm not going to lose my mind over it. I think it's stupid to make some sort of racist comment just to illustrate a point that Carlito is dumb. That's the big defense. He's dumb. He's playing a dumb person. There's 10 trillion other ways to illustrate how dumb Carlito can be than to say something that's blatantly racist. you know? So fuck that defense. That's stupid. If you want to portray Carlito as somebody who's dumb, do it. There's lots of other ways you can do it. And especially someone like Io Sky, who's already had to deal with fans screaming shit like "go back to China" to her when she's Japanese. She's the one that's already had to deal with this. And then Carlito comes in and makes a line like that. It's just dumb. Now, this is not the last dumb and embarrassing thing I'm going to see in wrestling. It was really dumb, really stupid for them to say. I think they've heard the criticisms because they've edited it out of the Raw or the YouTube clips. And perhaps it was an unscripted line. I don't believe it was. I believe it was scripted. But if it becomes clear or somebody comes out and proves that it was unscripted, fine. At the end of the day, I'm not even that mad about it. I'm just kind of baffled that something like this would still happen in 2024. Now, overall, pro wrestling is in a much better place than it was 25 years ago. The amount of offensive and stupid and ignorant things we're going to see on TV is a lot less than it was 25 years ago. But every now and then, there's going to be another one that's going to slip through. And my only thoughts on it beyond the fact that it was stupid is just, next time somebody speak up. Hey, internet might drag us for this one. Might want to cut that line out. Or if you are a wrestler, if this was unscripted and, Carlito should have known better. If you want to portray somebody as dumb, I think there are probably better ways in 2024 to do it. You know what I mean? And you can debate on whether or not you were personally offended by this or something. None of that matters. It's just the fact that that's probably not things that you want to be doing today. So just be a little bit more, just sensitive and understanding and aware about these things, and maybe think before you allow a line like that to get out. So anyway, pretty funny. It doesn't look like anybody's been held accountable for this or doesn't have any heat for this. I'm chalking it up as to a stupid line of dialogue that shouldn't have been said that I don't expect to hear again. But I also don't expect to never be offended about anything we see in wrestling or in WWE. It's, probably always going to happen. And at least it's not 1998 anymore. So that's all I'll say about that. All right, here's where we stand for Crown Jewel. Cody Rhodes versus Gunther. Champion versus champion thing. We know what's going on there. We broke all that down. Also, Nia Jax versus Liv Morgan. Don't know what's going to happen there, but what's interesting about that match at Crown Jewel between Nia Jax and Liv Morgan is they have the opportunity to do some crazy stuff here because Tiffany Stratton has the Money in the Bank briefcase. So if Tiffany cashes in at Crown Jewel, it depends on where she cashes in. If she cashes in after the match on the winner, or, then she just wins that championship, I suppose. But what if she cashes in before the match starts? And then the match becomes a triple threat. How many belts does she win if she wins? Does she win all 3 titles? Or does she win the belt from the person she pinned along with the Crown Jewel title? And the person who was not pinned keeps their title. That's what I think is going to happen. Or would she cash in at the end? Like, say, for example, Nia Jax wins the match. Right after the match, Tiffany comes out and cashes in on Nia Jax. Does Tiffany then just win the women's championship, or does she also win the Crown Jewel? I think she would win the women's championship. That would actually be funny on TV if it was that scenario. Nia Jax beats, maybe Nia Jax beats Liv Morgan with help from Tiffany Stratton, and then Tiffany cashes in on Nia Jax, wins the women's championship, but Nia Jax still carries around the Crown Jewel championship on TV. I'm still champion. I never lost. You cashed in, took advantage of me. I'm still the Crown Jewel champion. And she walks around with that belt like The Rock walking around with his Muhammad Ali belt. It might be a way to keep that ugly-ass Crown Jewel championship on TV, because whoever wins it between Cody and Gunther, I don't want to see that shit again past Monday Night Raw. Apparently, they're going to be taping Monday Night Raw in Saudi Arabia. So those belts will be on Raw. I have no doubt. But beyond the Saudi Raw, I'm hoping that Cody or Gunther is not carrying that thing around. But Nia Jax might want to carry hers around if she drops her championship. So Tiffany Stratton could win anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 championships, depending on what the scenario is. I think all scenarios are possible. She could win 1 title, 2 titles, or 3 titles, right? Depending on where and when she chooses to cash in. Interesting. We also, on Monday night, got the addition of Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed to Crown Jewel, kind of doing like Peter Griffin and the chicken angle with the two of them just fighting all over Monday Night Raw. That's big fun. It was big fun when Roman and Strowman did it back in 2017. This is big fun as well, and we'll see where it goes beyond Crown Jewel, if this is something that's going to carry into Survivor Series or not. Also, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, we had that match become official last night, as well as LA Knight taking on Andrade and Carmelo Hayes in a U.S. title triple threat match, and the Women's Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way, all announced last night. So we basically got 3 matches announced for Crown Jewel last night on SmackDown alone. So that's how the show is looking right now. That is a grand total of 6 matches, and I believe we are going to get 1 additional match that is going to be a tag team affair. And I think you can, a 6-man tag, and I think you can probably use your imagination there. Could be a fatal 4-way, but I think it's going to be, it could be an 8-man tag, but I think it's going to be a 6-man tag. And then we will do War Games at Survivor Series. Sorry, just cleared my throat there. All right, let's talk about, before we do that, NXT this past Tuesday saw the debut of Zarya. I don't know who Zarya is. I had to Google whether or not she was the love child of Doink and Luna Vachon. Turns out she's not, but she is now in NXT. And I think, even though I don't watch much of the NXT product because I think it's just goofy as all hell, I'm really liking the women's division right now. You know, you got Julia, you got Stephanie Vaquer, you've got Roxanne Perez, you got the Zarya coming in on, Damage Control was there on Tuesday. So you had Stephanie and Julia walking past Damage Control. Ooh, that's fun. So lots of cool stuff going on in NXT right now with the women, which is good because the women's division kind of in both companies is not doing a whole lot for me right now. AEW's done a shit job following up with Mariah May, who had the story of the year with Toni Storm. And in WWE, I've kind of lost a little bit of interest. Don't care much about, even though I love Nia Jax, think she's doing great work, I'm only mildly into the Tiffany thing, just waiting for the cash in there. And then Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley is kind of on hold right now because Liv's got to face Nia at Crown Jewel. And at this point, you know, we don't know when or if Ripley is going to be getting that championship back. Plus, we're probably going to have Charlotte showing back up pretty soon and Becky Lynch. So Charlotte and Becky, imagine them coming back together. Here's an idea. Imagine Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair successfully defend their championships at Crown Jewel in the Fatal 4-Way. And they're on top of the world now. There's nobody else for them to beat. So at Survivor Series, they come out and they challenge any 2 women in the locker room to come out and challenge them for the championships because they know there's nobody back there who can beat them. So if anybody wants to give it a shot, come on out there. We could use the victory. We could use the payday. And the team that comes out is Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair together, hand in hand, arm in arm. All the belt swapping shit is water under the bridge. And they dethrone Jade Cargill and Bianca and become women's tag team champions. Jade and Bianca blame each other, set up their Mania program. Why not? Why not? Just an idea. Anyway, we got to switch gears. Let's pivot over to our friends in Elite Land. I didn't watch Dynamite live. I watched it after the fact, watched it yesterday. And from what I was gathering on social media during the show was not well received. And, you know, it wasn't a great show. I'll admit that. It wasn't a great show. But when you look at what they are doing, it's what I kind of alluded to in the beginning. it does appear that they're making an effort. Whether or not this effort is going to be any good, whether or not this effort they're making is going to fix anything or improve anything, maybe still remains to be seen. But they are making an effort, because if there are fans who are still saying AEW does not have any stories, you are wrong. They've got plenty. They got Hangman and Jay White. They got the Shelton Benjamin stuff. They got Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay. They've got the BCC stuff. They've got, Orange Cassidy undergoing a change right now. We've got, Adam Cole and MJF. That's looking like it could potentially be fun, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense. And even Christian Cage and his deal there with the contract, and Jericho's a champion again. So like I said, it's not all good, but they've got some stories, and everybody, a lot of people have got concrete things that they're currently doing. And of course, the Moxley BCC story seems to be what AEW is banking on, to kind of change their fortunes at the moment. And Moxley is still being very, very cryptic, in a lot of his promos. The Dynamite on Wednesday opened up with, another one of those vignettes. There, he's in a pickup truck out in the desert wearing a jacket and sunglasses, reminding everybody in AEW that they work for him. And then the show opens up with a shot of the parking lot, and all of, like, the baby faces in the back, like Kyle O'Reilly, Top Flight, Action Andretti, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Satnam Singh was there, the Butcher, Dark Order. They're all in the back there. I think Daniel Garcia was there too, waiting for the BCC to arrive. But they're hanging out in the parking lot the whole fucking show, which is just ridiculous. So we get Hangman Page coming out first for an interview with Tony Schiavone. He starts talking about Jay White and what he did to Austin Gunn. He's then attacked from behind by Colton Gunn, and Hangman takes him out, and he's about to wrap his belt around his neck. That's when Juice Robinson and Jay White run in. Hangman retreats, and Jay White says that he will see him soon. So Hangman and Jay White continue their deal. Probably going to be a match at Full Gear. And probably Hangman getting his win back there. Such a fun match between Shelton Benjamin and Sammy Guevara. That was cool to see these two mix it up. And I loved the callback spot to the super kick. We all remember Shelton's springboard into eating a super kick from Shawn Michaels 20 plus years ago now, whenever that was. And basically redid the spot here with Sammy Guevara, only this time it's Shelton delivering the kick, not eating it. And he did put Sammy down and beat him, which was awesome. Shelton looks like a beast. He feels like he's finally being presented the way he should. And all signs are pointing to next week being the debut of Bobby Lashley, because Shelton Benjamin has a match next week on AEW Dynamite Fright Night or whatever. It's going to be Shelton and Swerve Strickland. That's got to be where we're going to see Bobby Lashley. We've also seen MVP passing out business cards. Last week, Max Caster took one. This past week, he tried to give one to Ricochet. So it sounds like the Hurt Syndicate might be trying to grow beyond Shelton and Bobby Lashley. Plus, Leo Rush, who worked with Shelton last week, has a big history with Bobby Lashley. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get in the mix as well. I think that would be really cool. So I'm intrigued by what they're doing there. And it's really awesome to see Shelton being presented the way he always should, in the ring as a badass, because he is one. Kyle Fletcher was out for a big segment in the ring where he is sick and tired of all the comparisons to Will Ospreay. He says he's nothing like him, and he proves that he's nothing like him by shaving his head right there in the middle of the ring. So shaved his own head. That's nice. I have now been bald for almost 20 years. It was late 2004 when I for the first time. So Kyle, you're going to love it. After that was the ladder war between Chris Jericho and Mark Briscoe for the Ring of Honor World Championship. And this was actually a fun match. Chris Jericho now is in his late hundreds, so he's old as all hell, and I don't need him in the ring anymore. But Mark Briscoe's awesome, and it's always a pleasure to watch him work, especially when it's a match that's violent and bloody and crazy. Tends to be fun when that guy's in these type of matches. And this was no different. The only thing that wasn't fun was the finish when Jericho got walked up the ladder on the shoulders of Big Bill to retrieve the Ring of Honor title, and now he's the new champion. So that sucks. That sucks. Chris Jericho, for some reason, is the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion once again. So now he's the Nueve, I guess. And I don't know what the thought process was behind putting the Ring of Honor title around his waist again. Are they trying to find, are they shopping Ring of Honor around for a home for some streaming or TV? Do they want the belt on Jericho because they feel like he still has some name value to him? I don't know. I don't see the point in this at all. The last thing that I need as a wrestling fan is Chris Jericho being a champion. So it sucks that he won. We'll see if Briscoe wins the title back. You know, they did something similar with Jericho and Hook. You know, Jericho won the FTW title only to give it back to him. So maybe that's where this is leading. Briscoe just wins it back. But for now, Jericho is the Ring of Honor champion. Yay. Yay. Adam Cole was out for a promo. He's then interrupted by his old homies, the Undisputed Kingdom. This whole thing is weird, and it almost gets more convoluted with what goes on here with MJF. But this whole situation is weird because now Cole's a face and MJF's a heel. When it was Cole that turned on MJF, and they're trying to invert this whole thing and trying to make it work. And I still think it will, because Adam Cole and MJF are two of my favorite wrestling personalities out there right now. And I don't think you can have a program between these two that can suck. I don't think it's possible. So Cole now is in the ring with Undisputed Kingdom. And Roderick Strong says that he wants a match with MJF first. Even though Cole wants to get his hands on him, Roddy wants a shot too. MJF then appears on the video wall, getting a massage from a very lovely woman who is not Alicia too. And he's getting a massage, and he says that he will give the match to whoever, between the two of them, Roddy and Adam Cole, whoever can win 3 matches in a row first. That person will face MJF at Full Gear. And MJF says he won't even show up again. You won't even see him again until Full Gear. And I think he might be filming another movie, somebody said. So he's not even going to be showing up until Full Gear, and he's not going to know who his opponent is going to be until either Adam Cole or Roderick Strong wins 3 consecutive matches. So obviously it's going to be Cole to do this. I can't see MJF and Roddy being on Full Gear when you have a chance to do MJF and Cole. So it's going to be MJF and Cole. And maybe this is, you know, even though it's kind of like when I first saw this, I thought it was like unnecessarily convoluting a little bit. Like, do we need this much detail? But maybe it's a way to get Cole some quick reps. You know, some quick TV reps there. Couple of matches, get back in shape there. I think he needs to hit the tandem bed a little bit. Wouldn't be a waste of his time. And just get himself in ring shape and, you know, and ready to rock and roll again so we can return to the Adam Cole of old, because he's one of my favorite modern day wrestlers. And I've hated that he's been plagued by injuries for a large portion of his AEW run. And much like Punk in WWE, it's crucial for me as a fan of this man for him to stay healthy on this next run. So I hope that that is the case for Chugs, because he's the best. He is the best. We saw House of Black win a squash match. After the match, Buddy Matthews gets on the mic in the ring and says he wants Adam Cole next week. House of Black then walks backstage. Cole gets in Buddy's face, and I think he says, "Do you have a problem with me?" or something, and I don't even know what Buddy says. But anyway, it's going to be Adam Cole and Buddy Matthews next week on Fright Night, I believe. Camille, or I should say Queen Aminata, worked her little ass off trying to make Camille look good. Try as she might. I don't know if she succeeded or not. Camille did defeat Queen Aminata. Chris Statlander came out to confront Camille, and these two powerhouse women have a match against each other next week. So then after that, we've got this Christian Cage and Hook and Kip Sabian thing. So we see Christian Cage and family, they pull up to the back. All the baby faces waiting in the parking lot thinks it's BCC. It's not. They start chasing Kip Sabian to the ring. Sabian, of course, took the pen out of Christian's hand a few weeks ago when he was about to sign the contract. And they chase Sabian in the ring. They corner him in the ring. At the same time, backstage, Renee Paquette catches up with Hook. He's making a beeline to the ring. And she's like, Hook, you said that you saw the security footage of who attacked your dad. And a lot of us were assuming it was Hook all along, even though that wouldn't make much sense because you can't have a Hook and Taz program. So why would Hook attack his dad? But it turns out they were trying to frame this as a swerve or a heel turn with Kip Sabian. So Hook says, the person who attacked my dad, the son of a bitch, is in the ring right now, and I'm going out there to get him. So Hook storms to the ring and makes a beeline for Sabian, but he gets low blowed. He gets low blowed by Kip Sabian, who then essentially joins Christian's family. Christian tells Kip that, hey, you still have to answer for taking the pen out of my hand, but for now, I need you to go stand over there. Kip, is it Sabin or Sabian? Sabian. Kip Sabin, or it's not Nick Saban, Kip Sabian. Kip complies, and Hook winds up getting taken out. So I guess it was Kip who attacked Taz, I think is what they're saying here. Unless it was Christian or something, I don't know, but they all took out Hook, and it looks like Kip is now joining Christian Cage's family, and I think that's great. By the way, all the best to Luchasaurus, aka Killswitch, and his recovery from his illness. Hope he's doing okay, and really hope he can rejoin this group at some point. Haven't seen any updates on him in a little while, so whatever's going on with the big bad dinosaur, we wish him the best and hope he's doing well. So Kip is now a member of Christian's group, and it was not Hook that attacked his own daddy after all. So I guess we were wrong. And then in the main event, we had the big six-man. It was Daniel Garcia and Private Party versus the Young Bucks and Jack Perry. And it was an okay match. We had, Private Party falling short of their tag team title bid at Wrestle Dream, and a lot of fans were upset about that. I was not. I feel like Private Party, I felt like even though I felt they were a little bit more forced, they're not as organically over, in my mind, just from my perspective. Let me know if you disagree. They're not as over, in my mind, organically as the Acclaimed was, or even as the Outrunners are. You know, when you see those teams kind of bubbling up, and Private Party definitely has supporters. I like them a lot, but I feel like this bid for the tag team titles has been largely rushed almost, and it felt like if they would have pulled the trigger at Wrestle Dream, it almost like might have been too soon from where I'm sitting. For some other fans, it might have been the perfect time. But remember when, I don't remember what show it was, but remember when the Acclaimed didn't win the titles and everybody thought that was a huge mistake? I was one of those people. I didn't have that same feeling for Private Party in this match. Where the Acclaimed, it felt like that was the time to pull the trigger. The Private Party match kind of didn't, to be honest. Even though I'm sick of the Bucks, I didn't want to really see them as champs anymore. But it almost felt like I wouldn't have been ready for Private Party. Even though they've been there 5 years, even though they hold victories over the Bucks in the past, this new bid for the championship seems like it kind of bubbled out of nowhere. And they've been teasing things backstage with Stokely, how he said, everybody knows Zay is a single star. And here in the main event of Dynamite, Isaiah pinned Matt Jackson. So Garcia and Private Party won this match. After the match, they got on the mic and challenged the Bucks to a championship match next week with the stipulation that if they lose, they will break up. And the Bucks accepted. So next week, it's going to be Private Party versus the Young Bucks for the tag team titles. If Private Party falls short, they will split up. So I feel like that can go either way. They're now either going to pull the trigger on Private Party, or since they've already teased that Isaiah is a single star, maybe they're going to try to push Isaiah the way WWE is failing to push Montez Ford for some reason right now. Because I thought Montez would be well into his singles push by now, and he hasn't even started it yet. So, maybe with Private Party, they would rather split them than put the tag team titles on them. We'll have to wait and see. But now, if they did win the titles next week, it feels to me like it would be a little bit more appropriate than it was at Wrestle Dream. So we'll see if Private Party, a team that definitely has put their time in and have worked and have been a good team, I would not be opposed to them winning the championships next week, but I would also not be opposed to them splitting up. Many years ago when I went on the Jericho cruise, they were late for the safety briefing. We all had to be in the auditorium to get briefed on what to do if the boat flips over upside down or whatever. And they were the last ones rolling in there, man. We're all sitting there with our life preservers and everything, and they're just late. So maybe they're still being punished for being late to the to the safety briefing on the Jericho cruise, and that's why they haven't won the titles yet. We'll see what happens next week. But the big story was what happened after the match. So after the match, Bucks agree to the match. They're still on stage, and the BCC attacks. They jump, they don't attack, excuse me. Do they attack Private Party? I forgot if they took out Private Party or not. But basically what happens is all of the baby faces, all of those guys waiting in the back parking lot were made to look like fools because Moxley, after the match, just comes right through the tunnel, right past the Bucks, dragging Chuck Taylor, who now I think works in a backstage capacity in AEW, dragging Chuck Taylor to the ring. The BCC gets in the ring, Wheeler Yuta and Claudio, and they put the chair on the ankle of Chuck to do the Pillman spot, and Claudio's like, and he grabs the chair off the ankle, puts it on Chucky T's head, and they stomp. I think it's Claudio's the one that executes the Pillmanization of Chuck Taylor's head on the chair, and he does it just as the dumbass baby faces waiting in the parking area finally realize what's going on and run to the ring, and BCC retreats, and everybody is very upset, very distraught. Doctors are tending to Chuck Taylor, and there's a definite change in the demeanor of Orange Cassidy. He's pissed off. This is his best friend, you know? And the show goes off the air, but in a digital exclusive on AEW's YouTube channel, you see OC, Orange Cassidy, definitely upset. He's talking with Daniel Garcia, and they're, maybe half arguing, but Cassidy's telling him, like, look, I'm going to fix this. I got this. I'm going to fix this. So it appears to me that the match we're going to get at Full Gear is going to be Jon Moxley defending the AEW title against Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy is going to be the first one to challenge Moxley, the next one in line to challenge him for the championship before this whole thing potentially culminates with Darby winning the title. Do you wonder if Tony Khan might dangle the AEW championship in front of Darby Allin as a way to convince him not to climb Mount Everest? Because I think Darby, he was set to climb last April, broke his ankle, had to postpone it a year. So I think his plan is to climb Mount Everest sometime in March or April or May of next year, which is just in a few months. But as you watch the storyline progress right now in AEW, it feels like what they have to do is Darby has to be the one to beat Moxley for this championship. Unless Moxley holds the title until next summer. Is it going to be Moxley and Darby at All In Dallas in July? It might be. That might be how long he holds this title for. And that'll be a big moment for Darby Allin. Just depends on what Darby wants to do. If he's going to climb Mount Everest or not, and it sounds like he intends to. But if there are creative plans for him to be champion, maybe Tony Khan can be like, look, can you postpone it one more year? Because then next year, if you die on Mount Everest, you are in our title history as a former champion, and we will immortalize you. We'll put a statue at AEW headquarters, and you'll be our Andre if you pass away on that mountain. But I'd like to make you champion first. So maybe it's like, Darby, you're going to be young and crazy next year too. It's not like you're going to be an old washed up man in 2026. So why don't you just climb Mount Everest and die in 2026 instead of this year, and we can make you a part of the storyline. Postpone your death for us if you don't mind. Maybe that's what's going to happen here. But Cassidy is going to be the first one to face Moxley here, or the next one, I should say, to face Moxley. And based on, his demeanor and what the BCC is doing, we saw Cassidy, take on a little bit more of a serious side. Now, we saw it a little bit. We've seen shades of it before when he had that feud with Jericho. Remember they did that summit that might have been the year that might have been the 2020 election or something. Because I remember they were doing like the podiums, right? And Cassidy cut a promo. And he spoke like a normal person, this or whatever. So maybe this is an attempt, excuse me, to change up the character a little bit of Orange Cassidy. Maybe that would please a lot of the fans. This isn't wrestling. Yes, it is. If it's happening in a wrestling ring, it's pro wrestling. Hate to disappoint you. Don't have such a narrow view of what it is. You know, wrestling's fun. Wrestling is all types of shapes and sizes and styles and gimmicks, and it's all fake, phony fun. So stop taking it so seriously. If somebody's hands in their pockets bothers you, you don't need to be watching this shit because it's not for you. So I think that if Cassidy eased up a bit on that, and maybe his character is currently going to go in a direction of, you know, a more serious nature because he's out now for revenge and retribution for his friend, and he's getting sick of what Moxley and the BCC are doing, you know, then you might see a little bit more of a serious edge to him during this Moxley feud, and then maybe he goes back to his old self later on next year. We don't know. But what's also cool when you think about Moxley and the BCC in the context of AEW stories is that the longer this goes, the more it's going to be interesting to speculate what's going to happen when this faction crosses paths with this faction. You know, if the BCC starts really running hard and they are dominating, and I still believe that there is a very good chance Shane McMahon is going to be a part of this down the road. You know, Moxley, you know, you work for us now, and we haven't even seen the AEW championship since he won it, you know, putting it in the duffel bag, you know, maybe essentially to deliver it to someone, some higher power, somebody pulling the strings. You know, this is revealed to be, you know, this huge deal, and it's the closest thing we've seen to an NWO, you know, hostile takeover type of angle, and it gets rolling and gets momentum and fans are into it. While at the same time, the Hurt Syndicate is kicking ass, you know, and, you know, the Elite are still doing their thing. And, you know, and some of these entities overlapping a little bit, you know, especially with the Elite, they're the most interesting ones because they're the ones technically in storyline with the power. You know, even though there was very little follow-up on the Tony Khan driver and attacking him and whatnot, they haven't really done much with that since then. But that would be pretty interesting, you know, and somebody, I saw the great analogy last week. I mentioned this before on Twitter. Somebody said that, you know, the Elite are like the crooked politicians and the BCC is the cartel. You know, there's kind of like a balance between them, you know, where they could easily be at odds one day, but, you know, there's a coexisting, you know, don't get in each other's way too much type of understanding or agreement going on, you know. But if the BCC's actions start getting a little bit too aggressive and they accidentally provoke a Hurt Syndicate, then we could have some fun, you know? So, and you also got to think about Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page and MJF and Adam Cole. There's lots of things right now in AEW that I think have the potential to be good, but they're still struggling. Wednesday show, you know, just did not feel like that much of a special show, but I could see an effort in, at least creatively, people are having specific things to do. They're not just throwing shit at the wall. Everybody's got, you know, their angles that they're doing here, and they're announcing matches now again in advance. That was one of the biggest compliments I could give AEW in their early days, is they seem to be one step ahead of themselves. You know, making sure they got a next week or two of stuff booked out, general direction of where they want to go. And I loved every week on Dynamite how Excalibur would run through what we're going to see next week. And it's really hard to do that in live environments. When you tape 4 shows at a time, then you can tell everybody what you're going to see next week, like it was back in the 80s and 90s. But now, you know, to be able to creatively know what you're going to do next week before you start this week's show, that was always a really big positive for me, because it created the assumption to me that they have their act together. They have their shit together. And lately it's felt like AEW has been extremely discombobulated with their creative. And now you're starting to see matches announced in advance that will do wonders for your ticket sales, you know, especially when they're dealing with attendance issues right now in AEW. if you let the fans know what they're going to see, you put a match, 2 weeks from now from Dynamite. Oh, I want to see that. That will definitely help your ticket sales. And even back in the day, I would buy, WWE would have, would do that a lot for Monday Night Raw, where you wouldn't necessarily know what the main event that was going to be that week, because a lot of times they would just announce that in the opening segment of Raw, but they would announce dark matches. And a lot of times they would advertise a really sexy dark match or something to take place. Or I remember in my case, the show I've referenced a bunch of times in 97, the Monday Night Raw right after the screw job with the mini Brett. DX made fun of him. And that night was Shawn and Vader. And I remember buying my ticket knowing it was going to be Shawn and Vader that night. So they must have had that match planned out. But whenever you can announce matches, big matches a week or two ahead of time, that can really drive, I think, some last minute or final week ticket sales. Throw an extra 600-700 people in that building, or whatever. And that's going to help. And I think you will see, a world of difference there. So, I feel like AEW, I wouldn't want to say rebuilding. They're not in a rebuilding mode because their talent is stacked and they got all the talent in the world there. It's just a matter of maybe rebuilding and resetting from a mentality standpoint or a creative standpoint. We saw the departure of Jimmy Jacobs, and maybe some things are changing behind the scenes, or maybe some new edicts behind the scenes that we're unaware of creatively. Hey, here's how we're going to do things from now on. Tony Khan saying, hey, I want this, this, and this set in stone before we go to TV on Wednesday. I want to know what we're doing, for the next Rampage and Dynamite that day. Who knows? But it feels like an effort is being made. An effort is being made to creatively organize your stories and to give us a storyline that is going to attempt to be a game changer in the company. It's still a big if this Moxley BCC shit falls flat on its face, or if it's an unbelievable success. We don't know yet, but it sounds like they're using this storyline and organizing themselves a little bit better creatively as a way to move forward, kind of retreat to move forward. If you got to shit out a couple of uninspiring dynamites in the sake of creative organization, then that's what you got to do. So that might be what they're doing. Yes, they're organizing some things now, and some of these dynamites might not come off that great or that exciting, but it's setting up for much more exciting television, in just a short amount of time. That's kind of the best case scenario. I'm always like glass half full with this fucking company. It seems like I feel like, AEW does enough right to where they should be successful. And one of those things that I feel like they do right is they do listen to the critics. And I think it's obvious based on what we're seeing on TV right now that they hear some of the complaints about the storyline, cohesion, and things like that. Looks like they're trying to iron that out right now. Even though if the shows aren't that great, don't killer ratings, or aren't that interesting to fans, it feels like they're trying to get that organized a little bit. So once, that all gets going, and the BCC angle continues to roll strongly, builds momentum. Lashley comes in, Hurt Syndicate becomes a thing. Adam Cole is healthy. Swerve Strickland is still kicking ass. MJF is back in the mix. Hangman Page is setting the world on fire, and you get all these things happening and all your cylinders firing at the same time. There might be hope for AEW. But one of the biggest things that was helping them before is how bad WWE was. WWE was shit for the first 3 years of AEW's existence. And it's only been recently that WWE's pulled their acts together, and now they are, like I said earlier, extremely fun, and they're doing great things right now, and they're a fun product to watch. So when WWE's already doing things very, very well, some fans don't necessarily want or need an alternative because they're getting their fix from WWE. So that's different. Where with me, I was so unbelievably exhausted by the shit WWE is feeding us for so long. I was desperate for something new. And those first 3 years of AEW was so nice and such a breath of fresh air to see somebody doing things differently, doing things the more the fans would, having great matches, not being scared of blood, just giving us an alternative. But Cody left. Punk was a complete disaster there. Vince's scandal breaks. WWE sells and completely changes the dynamic of their company and how they do business, while at the same time AEW is experiencing some issues, some decline in ratings and attention and all that stuff. The only thing that went really well for them was the TV deal that they got and is now going to make them an actually profitable company, but that doesn't change the problems that we see on television. So now when you have WWE doing everything right, it's going to be a lot easier to be critical of AEW, considering that we're not watching a product in WWE that completely sucks ass. Because that really helped make AEW enjoyable, was the frustration that we were constantly all going through week after week with WWE's nonsense. So it's just a different landscape now than it was 5 years ago when AEW was created. So now we have to see how they handle their adversity. Now their backs are up against the wall a little bit, and it's up to them to make the best of this new TV deal to ensure that when this one comes up, they have a secure place on cable TV and streaming for years to come. So these next couple of years, I think, and I believe in AEW, are very, very crucial to their future, to their survival. And the fact that they're trying is makes me feel optimistic because of what I've said so many times about WWE in the past. We used to complain and complain and complain. And what did they do? They basically just gave us the middle finger right to our faces. Keep crying, you little bitches, because you're going to tune in on Monday night anyway. They loved jerking us around. They loved it when we were disappointed. Triple H, he enjoyed it. I'm convinced of that. If he didn't enjoy it, he wouldn't have gone out on Raw and say, if I don't like what I see, I'm going to go online and complain with my friend Mark, or whatever he said. You can tell there's a disdain in his voice for us. And that was frustrating. And AEW was giving us some great things. Now, tables have turned, and it's time to see how AEW responds. And sometimes all it takes is one hot angle or one hot wrestler. Hopefully somewhere in this soup of AEW, a winning team exists. Like Moneyball. So we'll see. Either way, Fright Night's looking pretty good. Next week, we have Swerve and Shelton, Camille versus Chris Statlander, the Bucks versus the Private Party, and probably the Moxley and Orange Cassidy full gear setup, because Cassidy is vowing to take care of this. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of a confrontation or brawl or fight or something next week that will probably set up the championship match at Full Gear between Moxley and Cassidy. So even though Wednesday's Dynamite might have been viewed as a weaker show, I feel like stories are building and things could be changing in AEW. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying I'm seeing signs of it. I'm seeing signs of improvement. I'm seeing signs of efforts being made to improve, because efforts being made to improve and improvement could be two different things depending on, how early on in this process they are. But I think that an effort is being made. Whether or not it works, up in the air, but they're trying. And that's a lot better than them ignoring. Because we know, don't sit here and pretend you don't remember what it was like to be ignored by WWE. All them years of them people bitching about John Cena and bitching about Triple H and bitching about Roman Reigns and all their pushes they were getting and all the matches they were winning. What did WWE do every time you said something about that? Fuck you, fans. We don't give a shit. Oh, you don't like that John Cena won the title? Well, guess what? He's going to win 8 more in the next 2 years. Happy? They would just jerk you around. Stick it to you. The more you complain, the more they fucked you over. Where in AEW, fans are vocal about what their issues are, and what are they doing? You see a change. That's all I'm saying. All the changes they're making could just make the product worse. I'm not saying the changes are good or bad. We don't know yet, but it's nice to see an effort being made. And I'd much prefer that from a wrestling owner or a wrestling company to say, hey, fans are bitching. We might want to maybe look at what they're saying here and see what we can do to be better and how we can keep entertaining them to the highest degree. Where in WWE in 2016 or 2015 or whenever the years of hell were going on, the more the fans bitched, the more WWE just trolled you. They just trolled you, and they loved it, and they got off on it. That's why I don't understand why fans are tribal at all. Tribalism makes no sense to me. I think we should want both companies to be doing well, because we did have that brief period when Vince scandal first happened, and there was maybe 6 months there where WWE and AEW were both on fire. And that was a glorious 6 months. I'd like to get back to that. one day. So it's up to AEW. Ball's in their court now. Watch, once they start getting their act together, shit's going to hit the fan in WWE, and they're going to start sucking. What we need 97 and 98 recreated. We need a couple of good years where both companies are just crushing it. Where, they both have huge fan bases, both doing great stories, both have great champions and great wrestlers, and wrestling's super fun again. I would love to get back to that. And we got a glimpse of it a couple years ago. Remains to be seen if we'll get another glimpse again, but I hope so. So anyway, that is the end of my notes, and we were able to have a 2.5-hour podcast today. How great is that? Let me go to the chat here and knock out any more super chats, see what else you guys are saying, and then I'm going to have to be getting out of here for the rest of the day. Ryan Adams, appreciate the $10 from you. Owens beating Cody by hitting the package pile driver for the first time in his WWE run would be a shocking moment. Yeah, but in the terms of Saturday night's main event, some big shocking trick up his sleeve, I'm going to need more than a package pile driver. He can hit him with a package pile driver, fine, but that's got to be preceded by something, major. By the twin referee thing from 1988 would be perfect. Something like that. Jake, the original Tribal Chief. Yeah, Punk versus Gunther is the rumored title match for Survivor Series. That's the match I've had on my radar ever since Bash in Berlin. So I can definitely see that being the case. If you didn't hear all my chatter about that earlier, rewind a bit, and I talked all about the 19 different paths we can take between now Crown Jewel, Survivor Series, and Saturday night's main event. Juliet, appreciate you gifting out a membership to Red Raven Rucker. Welcome to the family, Red Raven. I'll make sure I get another members only Saturday night's main event up or scheduled soon, so you can participate in that. And good to see here, Juliet, and also Ian Dunn. Welcome back. Just reading some of these comments here. And Spectra. Oh, Spectra joining the family again. Shit, I forgot to change my card. Lost my membership streak. Oh, man. Well, you're a lifelong member in my heart, Spectra. Don't you even worry about it. If any of you do that or lose your little icons, you have an icon in my heart. Always know that. Right on. Oh yeah, Collision goes live in 5 minutes. I didn't even look at the card before we get out of here. Let's see what's going on in Collision. I probably have, there's AEW's page right there. Usually they got a big Collision match card. We got M&M Collection against the Outrunners. That's going to be fun. Okay. Yeah, it goes live here in just a couple minutes. Here we go. We got FTR against La Faction Ingobernable. We got Ricochet and Lio Rush. I'm sorry. Does it say Ricochet and Lio Rush? I'm sorry. Ricochet and Lio Rush? Well, I'm going to be watching that. If you try to think in your head what the exact opposite of King Kong Bundy versus Uncle Elmer is, it's Ricochet and Lio Rush. That's past the lotion match right there. Anna Jay and Viva Van. I don't know who maybe Viva Von. I don't know who Viva Von is. And Jay White and Shane Taylor. All right, right on. I'm going to be watching that Ricochet and Lio Rush match. That's going to be fun as hell. And who did Ricochet work with last week or last night? Oh yeah, Ricochet just worked with Nick Wayne last night on Rampage and beat him. So we got Ricochet and Nick Wayne last night. We get Ricochet and Lio Rush tonight. That is fun. And Ricochet, I think, is targeting Takeshita's International Championship right now. And he was also offered a business card by MVP. So right on. Well, anyway, thank you for sticking around today for this very long podcast. Enjoy Collision tonight if that is your plan. And make sure you join us tomorrow for Halloween Havoc 1991. Should be a fun watch along. And I will be able to push this podcast out to the podcast feed here in just a little bit. So keep a lookout for that if you like to listen to the audio. And I think that is it. So you guys have a great rest of your Saturday, and I will be talking to you